Good afternoon and welcome. This is the Marion City Council work session for Tuesday, June 6th. First up, we have a presentation regarding Linn County Solar Group Buy Program. Mr. Holthouse, welcome. Is it on? I don't think it's on.
Simple enough. Okay. Hey, there we go. My name's Eric Holthouse. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. Kesha Billings and Tom Trahern had extended the invitation, so I'm sort of speaking as one on behalf of a group. But thanks for the opportunity to be here, Mayor and City Council and everybody else, the directors and everyone else in the audience. I'm Eric Holthouse. I work for the City of Cedar Rapids as Sustainability Coordinator. I'm going to give a little bit of information about why we're involved with this solar project, why we're involved with sustainability just very briefly, and then I'm going to give more details on the solar group buy program. So we became more interested in solar energy as an option. It was actually June of 2016, a year ago, that we went ahead with the solar PV array on our Northwest Transit Garage. It just happened to be a facility that was new. It happened to pay a high enough rate for electricity that a power purchase agreement, which is kind of a technical agreement that allows us to pay a certain price for electricity into perpetuity through a third party that would install and own those solar panels and be able to reap some of the tax benefits that we as a city could not, but they could, and then deliver us a good price. So regardless, we became interested in solar because the prices have dropped quite a bit over the past, ever since solar has been invented, it's obviously been improving. And we had a good experience with our Northwest Transit Garage installing 90 kilowatt solar array. That's roughly 60% of that building's needs. And I guess there's a little bit of information right there. The payback was really good for us. We just hired a consultant to do some analysis on the RFP, which is a pretty complex document. So that's our only cost. It was a soft cost. There was no hard equipment cost at the beginning. That's the nature of a power purchase agreement. We also signed on to, along with Linn County actually, to be a solar-ready community. That's actually ran through the SolSmart organization, part of the Solar Foundation, which has some Department of Energy funding. This is a simple community statement that we want to make solar as an option for people that are interested, easy and simple for homes or businesses or farms. And so that's just our commitment to go through this framework where we look at planning and zoning, we look at permitting and inspection processes. We continue to work with Alliance, certainly, to make sure that anything that we're doing aligns with their policies and operations. We'll work on education, we'll work on finance and market development as well. So through this process, both the city and the county will earn either a bronze, a silver, or a gold status for being a solar-ready or solar-friendly community. So that's an ongoing process. Kind of the greater context, and speaking a little bit with the mayor and Councilmember Brandt, sustainability is a growing issue, and I think a lot of cities, communities, many institutions, people are starting to understand that sustainability is about the triple bottom line. There's absolutely an environmental health component. I think that's how a lot of people get into the door. Solar, waste reduction, could be biking, could be many things. But then we also find that environmental health is intrinsically related to our health. It's intrinsically related to our economic health for the long term. And so the more variables that we have at the table to make decisions, the more long-term our decisions will be, the better our decisions will be. So you can think about solar having both environmental health benefits, it has human health benefits, it's a cleaner energy source, it has economic benefits, the payback's very good. You can think about a lot of the biophilia efforts that City of Marion's doing, or also you're certainly involved with the 1,000-acre pollinator initiative. So when we think about saving the pollinators, the bees, the butterflies, those are often the main characters of the story, but there's also recreational benefits, of course, that we incur. So there's a health benefit. Being in nature, I guess that's the definition of biophilia. We need nature. We're healthier when we're in nature, so there's a human health aspect. There's an economic aspect for communities, bringing in tourists, having more recreational trails. So that's just another example of how the triple bottom line plays itself out. As we think about more of these different elements, we can make better decisions that are better for everybody. You can think about bike lanes too, just as an example. That's really good. You often think about people that are choice riders that are going out, the throngs of bikers in this area that go out for, joyful, health, just kind of recreational needs. But most cities, studies show 50% of bike riders in a city are typically low income. They're biking because of need. They're biking to just take part in the economy. Maybe they don't have a license. Maybe they're too young. Maybe owning a car is out of their reach. And so 50% of bikers are oftentimes low-income residents. And so when we do bicycling efforts, it's for those that want it. Making that choice, it's for those that need it. That's the equity element. We're improving, of course, air quality. And there's also a lot of economic development arguments for making roads more bikeable, walkable, busable, drivable. And so the city of Cedar Rapids has our Sustainability Integration Committee that's helping to guide some of these efforts. It's most of our city's directors, and we're also pursuing, you might have heard of it before, but STAR communities. So we're starting to very seriously measure our sustainability metrics for our community, looking at very comprehensively the social, economic, and environmental health benefits. And that's sort of our long-term vision there. So I'm going to jump back into now the solar group buy. And so Solarize, Cedar Rapids, and Linn County, a solar group buy. This is a type of program that's been replicated across the country, and we're working with the Midwest Renewable Energy Association. It's a renewable energy promoting organization out of Wisconsin that works across the Midwest. And so as the solar group buy, what is one? I guess I'm sorry for the small print right there. I thought it might look a little bit bigger. So a solar group buy, what we're talking about is bulk pricing. We're trying to aggregate demand so that solar, for those that are interested, is less expensive and easier to understand for homes and businesses and farms. So a solar group buy is a tool for scaling solar deployment in a short period of time and moving communities toward their sustainability goals. Some of the things that make a solar group buy interesting and I guess make it popular, there are price breaks. So between June and September, over that 4-month period, as homes and businesses and farms say sign up through the solar group buy, as we reach different thresholds, at 50 kilowatts, there's a price reduction for all participants. At 150, 250, and then 350 is our ultimate goal, there's a price reduction for all participants. We have what are called, we're going to create this is the MREA's, branded educational session. We have between 15 and 20 solar power hours across the county. So I'll show you that schedule here in a moment. But these are educational sessions that will have the MREA hired solar power hour facilitator. We will have the solar installer that was chosen through the competitive RFP process that will be there to be able to answer questions. And Alliant Energy has also agreed to be there, which will be excellent because they'll be able to respond to a lot of their operations and sort of what those processes look like. And this is sort of the one-stop shop if you're interested in this to learn about solar basics, learn about the solar group buy specifics, ask any questions that you might have. If you continue to be interested, you can, of course, go ahead and schedule a free site assessment with that solar installer to see if your property might be a good fit. So one of the things that also makes a solar group buy successful is sort of the grassroots energy and having a lot of people be part of it, just kind of promoting the word, and then also having this competitive RFP process. So a solar installer was chosen through a competitive RFP process to make sure that they're qualified, make sure that they could handle an influx of demand, and they would have to commit to the specific structure of this program. So these are our partners in this formally, and at least our advertisements. We're working with a lot of other sites. We're working with Alliant Energy. We're working with a lot of folks to make this come true. So solarizellinncounty.com is the site to learn more. And now I know, I guess this is going to be really small, but we have, there's more than 15 solar power hours scheduled right now. So I'm going to look at this and give you the dates of the most important ones, which are on the left, actually. These are all the June dates, which you can't see that well. So in June, June 13th, it's next Tuesday. Our first solar power hour is at Cedar Rapids Downtown Library. It's at 6:30 p.m. June 20th, that's a Tuesday. We have one at Center Point High School Library. June 21st, Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Lau Park in the Oak Room. That's the Marion destination that we got scheduled in that first month. We have Thursday, June 22nd, Prairie High School, the study hall. That's in Cedar Rapids. June 27th, on Tuesday, 6:30 p.m., we have Mount Vernon City Hall. And then June 28th, on Wednesday, we have the Indian Creek Nature Center. So maybe I'll just bring your focus primarily to that. One that's in green, that's Marion, the Lau Park Oak Room, and that's once again on June 21st, a Wednesday, at 6:30 p.m. So I think that wraps it up for me, but I was hoping to just impart the basics of this program, where it's coming from, who some of the partners are, and hopefully kind of elucidate this solar group buy idea, which is relatively new to our area, but the bulk pricing concept I think is exciting. I think a lot of folks are excited about solar right now. We're excited to bring this opportunity just to make it simple and easy for those that are interested, and we're excited to see how it plays out.
So the members of the group can be anyone?
Any home.
Businesses or homes? Or?
Yeah, homes, businesses, farms. It's specific to Lynn County. It would actually be, so the solar installers committed to those price breaks and to this program for those in the county. It would be up to their discretion if they wanted to offer the same program pricing to anyone outside of the county.
The one-time deal or?
June through September is the duration of this program.
Plans to repeat it again, or?
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
So
you haven't
communities
done it yet.
have.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Happen to have any other questions about it, or?
Good luck. It's a great idea.
Thanks. If anyone wants to learn more, please let me know. Any kind of support or interest that you guys want to share, we'd be grateful for it. So thanks again to the council, to the mayor. Thanks for Tom Trahern and I guess Kesha Billings that wasn't able to be here today. She's got more important things to do, like raise a 9-day-old. And so thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Could just make one further statement. One of the programs and a part of this, is Eric indicated, is that there's ordinances that will be generated at, I think Cedar Rapids and Lynn County are working on an ordinance within the solar program. Is that correct? For regulating and making communities solar ready. So like if someone comes in and wants to do solar, the ordinances are in place to support it. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's accurate. So these happen to be kind of concurrently running, but sort of independent projects as well. So we're accurate. We're working on making just the permitting, the inspection process. Right now, you would have to kind of dig through the weeds to figure out what of, say, electrical inspections for this solar installment, what of this is specific to solar. We're just trying to make those processes more clear.
Yeah, and I think that's something what we'd like to work a little bit with that. So as you hear us talking about from a zoning or engineering and whatever perspective, I think it's just good. If you recall, some of you may recall when the wind energy came to light, we did draft a tower ordinance and a windmill ordinance, so we do have some of that in place as well. So anyway, just so the council's aware.
We'd be really happy to be as contiguous or as consistent as possible.
Yep.
Working with the county to do that. So anything that we could share, just make similar for the benefit of kind of the region, we'd be happy to do that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
You were involved in the Indian Creek project, or Indian Nature Center, Indian Creek Nature?
No, that really preceded me, and a lot of the planning certainly started before I was
okay.
here, but I've been lucky to go to the facility and check it out.
What size is that facility? Do you know?
Mary might be a better resource on this. I actually don't know the size of it. It's a net zero building, meaning they're generating more or the same amount as they consume. I don't know the specifics.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
I have one question. I hear Tesla making a lot of things about their solar shingles. Have we had anybody sign up for that? I mean, they apparently put them on like regular shingles. I don't understand all that. But
Yeah, a lot of people would say that they're prettier than the current offering of solar, right? I don't know that those are market ready yet. I don't know of anyone that's installed those at this point.
Interesting concept.
Certainly got a lot of contacts about those, about batteries for homes, but no tangible kind of experiences with those at this point.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you very much.
Public service?
Thank you, Your Honor. First item under public service that we'll discuss. Number 2, this is approving our awards for winter de-icers. This time of year that we get to start doing that. It's a process. This year things have changed. We actually utilize the Iowa Department of Transportation. We utilize their bidding procedures. They've changed it to where we don't have to award the upfront amount. What we just do is say, hey, we're interested in getting a bid on this total. Typically we go out for 4,000 tons on a bid, and then they give us the bid price back. So we're not agreeing to the whole amount. De-icers have gone down since we've had some light winters. This last year, it's about $72 a ton. This year, it's going to go down to $66 a ton. At public service, we do pull from multiple sources, not only from the DOT, but also from the mines themselves. We like to keep ourselves diverse. Every once in a while, if we pull for the mine, we can save a lot of money. And so we are recommending award of this for this next year.
Okay.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Good.
Price down. Like you come up with magic every year.
Yep.
I said, thanks for keeping the price down. You come up with magic every
Yep.
year.
And then if the council remembers, we actually supply it to multiple municipalities around here, Hiawatha, Springville, Bertram. Quite a few municipalities pull from us, so we're kind of the center hub for the smaller towns here. So that's why our quantities are a little bit larger than others. So.
All right.
Okay. A couple hours.
Okay.
All right. Moving on to number 3, discussion regarding master lease agreement and pole attachment with Verizon Wireless. A couple months ago, we discussed this, told the council it is coming. This goes back to our small cell project that we did. I believe we executed the initial agreement back in October of 2015. These are the sites where we take a city light pole, and Verizon Wireless co-locates what they call a small cell antenna on these. Currently, we have about 6 sites within the city. Since then, Verizon has come back to the city, identified an additional 7 sites that they're interested in installing these. The way the agreement works is that they will pay for all the improvements. They'll actually buy and install a pole to be dedicated to the city of Marion. With that, they'll pay an annual lease of $2,000 per year. And then after 5 years, which is the term of the lease, we will renegotiate that figure. Okay, and so at that time, the city will go back and put a different price, annual or monthly price on that. That fee includes all the electrical consumption for their, not only for the city street light, but also for the cellular radio. So since that time, there has been some changes in state law. We just discussed these today with planning and the city attorney's staff. As of July of this year, a new law will take effect. Can't say we agree with it, but this gives the small cell people a lot more autonomy in installing these in the cities. So staff is working through this. The way the law is read right now, it says we really have a difficult time controlling these. That being, if another cellular company wanted to come in, identify locations within the city, they could go on a utility pole and we could do very little about this. So our efforts with this project is to control that build out, put it on the city pole, try to keep the aesthetics controlled. We try to keep the antennas black. We try to have everything kind of mesh into the background. And then with that, since it is a city pole, we can control the lease agreements. We can control the further build out from there. So what we have to do, though, is for us to approve any type of supplemental lease agreements, we have to set a public hearing. Staff is recommending setting one for June 22nd. At that time, we will open that and have further discussions. So any questions at this point about that project?
Some of these light poles that we have out there, we don't actually own, correct?
So there are city-owned light poles, and there's light poles that are owned and operated through Alliant Energy. Through we pay them a fee for those light poles.
Do we have any say-so on those light poles about, have they approached them to put cellular towers on light poles for them? Okay. All right. All right. Thank you.
The answer was not in Marion at this point in time.
At this point in time.
We usually have people come to the microphone to.
Yeah.
That's okay, thank you.
We're going to see a big surge in this. And so I think it's staff's opinion that we're going to have to get ready for something bigger. It's okay right now. We're getting, 5 or 6 or 7 at a time here. What we foresee happening is other companies jumping on them. We know they're coming. They've already called, feeling us out. But it's going to be appropriate for the city of Marion to formulate some new policies to get a handle on this. Because sometimes these can get out of hand. I mean, they can get pretty ugly pretty quick. And so that's going to be critical for us next year to get a better handle on this.
Okay, other questions on this?
Is any of those uptown, Ryan?
So we got those double-arm decorative poles. We pretty much restricted those.
But I mean, is any of the sites, is there any?
We have one site right at the corner of City Hall here, 5th Avenue and 13th Street. And the other one, no, nothing on 6th Avenue, nothing on 7th Avenue, just off the side streets there.
Yeah, it gets real crowded there in the park.
Yeah. Yep. And they have their engineers, they have their network engineers that come in, they overlay the area they want to cover. Mm-hmm. And then typically we work with them to find a suitable site, something that we can accept and they can work with.
Okay.
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 So we'll be voting on this on Thursday?
Yeah, we'll vote to go to a public hearing on June 22nd, and then from there we'll open the public hearing.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Fire, police, which one? Let's talk about fireworks. Fire? Okay.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, members of the council. I apologize for not coming to the podium. I injured my foot this past weekend, so no disrespect, but if I could talk to you from here, I'd really appreciate it. I just wanted to quickly update you on the fireworks situation because it seemed important to the council that we have a metro, I guess, the same throughout the metro on the use of fireworks. And you probably all know Cedar Rapids voted to have firework use from June 1st to July 8th, as did Hiawatha. You voted for June 24th through July 8th. So I wanted to make sure that you're comfortable with that and we could go with that. Chief Michaela and I discussed it, and we both feel we should leave it as is. You were also concerned about the time of day. I misspoke at the last meeting. It is not 12 noon. It is 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. So I didn't know if you wanted any changes in that also. So I'm just bringing it to you, trying to keep you informed. I know you had different ideas, so I just wanted to bring it forward. Is there anything else you would like us to do with this?
Appreciate the update. What are your thoughts on the time? Do you have any thoughts on it?
I have a personal opinion. No. The time is what the time is. The state set it at 9 a.m. to 10 p.m.
But we can restrict that?
But you can restrict that time, yes.
Like 1 minute before midnight? Is that what your personal?
Chief,
I would just recommend that we, to be consistent with, I know we're differing on the dates, to make it a little bit easier for our citizens to stick with the times in the state law.
Maintain the times as they are?
Yes, sir. Because you can do construction at 9 a.m. You can, it's going to be noisy out there regardless.
That's true.
And, I think the 2-week period in a couple years may even be too long for most. But
too long?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
do we now have an application if someone wants to sell fireworks?
We do.
We do have.
And it has been inspected. The site has been inspected. We're getting ready to give that permit out.
Thank you.
Yes.
And just to clarify for the public, because I have been receiving communications from citizens, the city of Marion and all cities had nothing to do with permitting the sales of fireworks. That was done by the legislature. The cities are trying to figure out how to regulate the use, which we're able to do. And Marion's position was that we should allow at least some kind of window to allow people to use them because they've been using them already. You can hear them around town. So they're going to use them whether or not they're legally permitted to do so. So, okay. Other questions for the chief on this?
So we're still in the period that we can change the times if we want to change the times?
Yes, if you wanted to next council. But I agree with Chief McHale. Construction's allowed at 7 a.m. That's loud. I really don't think there'll be a lot of people out and about 9 a.m. in the morning shooting off fireworks, but I could be wrong. So for this year, I think 24th through the 8th, we've limited the window. Let's see what happens with the times, and we can always change it for the next year.
I think as with a lot of things, the other cities will follow our lead.
Yes.
So you've only had one application for a permit?
Yes, I'm expecting many more tents, and that doesn't start until June 13th, the sale with tents. So.
Can someone apply for a permit now for a tent?
Yes, they can.
But you still haven't had any?
Yeah, they can't sell until the 13th.
Right.
Still have time.
Okay, other questions on this?
Okay, then I'm going to close that discussion of fireworks. It is what it is, and
Thank you.
June 24th comes.
Thanks to both the chiefs for your work on that and advising us.
The other, number 2 on the agenda, approving the purchase of the mobile data terminals. Those came in under bid. If you remember, also in your packets, I gave an explanation of this. Last year, we had asked for these. In fact, we've asked for these the last couple years and didn't get it in the budget. The Marion Firefighters Association came forward and offered to put money towards these because they were very important to us. The Marion Firefighters Association has given $20,000 to $25,000 towards the purchase of mobile data units for our first 4 engines that respond to calls. This last budget year, then, I applied again for the rest of the mobile data terminals to be put in our other apparatus. And it was passed in the budget. This is to purchase all of those. It did come under budget for the city. We are purchasing 13, but the city itself is only purchasing 8. 2 are being purchased by the Marion Township, and the other 4 are being purchased by the Marion Professional Firefighters Association, the ones that hold the stake for ICE. So they have some monies that were available.
Okay. Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So do these terminals allow you to get to know where you're going much easier, or what does it do?
Actually, we're doing the same thing as PD. We'll be able to communicate with mobile data units with PD. We'll have better GPS system, GIS systems to locate. We'll have on these mobile data terminals the pre-plans for every commercial building, and we'll even have them for the farm residents in the township when we respond to those.
So you know what you're going into when you get there,
Oh
before you
yeah,
get there.
we're ready.
Yeah,
Yep.
that sounds
The
good.
building plans will be available to you?
Yes, immediate when we arrive on scene, it'll show where the fire department connections are, the hydrants, where people are located, everything. Hazardous materials will show us immediately so we can keep safe too.
Yeah, that's very helpful.
Is that a database they keep up? Or?
Yes, it is. We have to keep it up, but
Yeah, yeah, so you'll have someone that will keep that up for us.
yes, we will.
Yeah. I think
Okay.
that's a great safety at the drive.
It is. It's much needed in today's world.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Engineering. Got lots of stars here.
Need a bigger podium, I guess. Okay, under engineering, we'll start under item 7, which is an approval of the creation and grant of covenants to the Rock Island District, the Corps of Engineers. This basically is for the Grantwood Trail development from between 31st and 35th. Eventually, we have a project scheduled, not this year, but coming year, for a trail connection from 31st across the railroad right-of-way, which is ours now, of course, to 35th. Within that, we have wetlands, and within the other part of the project from 35th east over to Highway 13, we have wetlands that have to be recreated in a new area. So what we're proposing is to build wetlands in this area. The DOT, or the Corps of Engineers, wants us to provide for covenants over that area so that it would not ever be redeveloped, so that once we develop the wetlands, they can stay there. So that's basically all this does, is create that. It releases our rights to the property, basically, to redevelop it.
So it's a restrictive covenant that
Yes.
it says you can't develop.
We would never, it has to stay as wetlands over the time, so.
That's not, is that enforceable forever?
Yes. Once we would create wetlands there, the Corps requires us to keep the wetlands there. in
What's the
perpetual.
mechanism to make it enforceable forever?
What's that?
What's their mechanism for making it enforceable forever? Because covenants, you can't restrict use of land for more than 21 years. They,
Well, that's probably true. They expect it to be permanent. I guess permanent to them is 20 years, but right now they're asking for the agreement that you have in your packet that allows for that covenants.
okay.
It allows us to proceed with the project. Like I said, the project is not immediate. We're getting through the permitting process and through the requirements so that we can do the project when it comes time to do it.
Dan, is that the old existing railroad right-of-way? I'm confused.
Yes, it is. It's kind of hard to tell on here, but basically this entire strip down through here is the old railroad right-of-way that we purchased. This yellow, the light yellow here, is current wetland areas within the site. We're going to build a basin here to create retention for stormwater from the properties west of 31st, the commercial district, the GLD, and then also put wetlands at the bottom of that so we can establish those in one place. The alternative to that is to buy within an area reserved by the Corps where they have wetlands. That's pretty expensive, and we thought we would give this a try. We can plant them. We have to monitor them and report on them for 5 years. And after that time, they will accept them, and then we're good to go as far as wetlands.
Once across 35th Street, then that'll go, the trail itself will go on behind the mobile home park.
It actually goes east of Lynn Co-op. It goes north of Lynn Co-op and then south to 3rd Avenue. Goes across the front of a couple properties there, and then goes back north along the old railroad, and then east from there.
Okay, to get out to the new line. Yeah.
And the next item is kind of related to that as well. So working for planning tonight. So they're working for us too, so that works out. So the next item is also connected to the Grantwood Trail, but it's between 35th and Highway 13. Basically, as you can see, east of 35th, we come along, let's see, it would be east of 44th. We cross Squaw Creek in this area, southwest of the concrete plant. It's kind of hard to describe. 8th Avenue is above here. Rachi's construction is down here on the west side. Basically, as part of this plan, we're putting a bridge in over the creek at this location. When we submitted those plans for approval and permitting on the waterway, the Corps came back and said that we need to have you do more study on the impact of the backup of water caused by the structure. In doing that, within our current scope of work for the engineer, they had not included that for that extra study. So we're back before council to ask for a $6,500 amendment to the contract to allow for that work to be done by a subconsultant, because Anderson Bogert does not do that work. So we thought the amount was reasonable. It's required to build the trail and the bridge, so it's kind of a necessity at this point. So.
Don't have a lot of options.
What's that?
Don't have a lot of options.
No, no, if we want to move forward with the project. The next item is item 9, which is the change order number 1 for the Pelling Company with the 2017 HMA overlay resurfacing project. As you recall, we had a bid amount and an award of contract to Pelling for $702,000, a little bit more than that. We did budget within the CIP for $750,000. We're coming back to you for a request for a change order for $39,883 to add to the project 12th Avenue from 12th Street to 13th Street and from 3rd Street from 3rd Avenue to 5th Avenue. We thought these were the next streets in line that were in need, and the necessity of having repairs done to them. So we're recommending that amendment to the contract. Pelling has agreed to do the work under the current contract at the unit prices provided. Questions?
What was the dollar amount there?
$39,000.
I mean, sorry for that. So we're budgeted 750, and what was the original?
702.
702. Okay, all right.
$137.
Thank you.
Yep. So we're under the 750
Still under,
budget.
yeah.
Yes. The next item is items 10 and 11 for the sidewalk assessment project for this year. We did receive 4 sealed bids on May 30th for the project, which is on 29th Street on the east side, north of 10th Avenue. We did have budgeted $59,055 for the year. That was left over from what we overspent last year, which was approved by council. But we did receive 4 bids. The low bid was from Eastern Iowa Excavating. Work will begin no later than August 7th and be done within 30 days. The low bid of $58,324.09 was 82% of the estimate, and we are recommending approval of those bids and award of the contract. Questions?
Can't do it any sooner, like before school?
They will probably come in and do it before then. We just allowed for that. We get better price. We give them more options.
That'd be good.
This main footprints in the concrete.
Yeah, right.
If they do, they get to rebuild them for us. So. The next item is items 12 and 13, which are the Armar Drive extension project. We've talked about this previously. The project, of course, is from Highway 100 up to the north city limits, which connects to the old Armar section that goes up to First Avenue, Marion Boulevard location. We originally had an estimate which we thought was high. It was developed for us by the consultant, but it was $531,401. So we did go back to the Local Option Sales Tax Committee and did receive more funding to cover the cost of this project, which is getting fairly expensive. But we were good with 6 sealed bids being received and the low bid from Rachi Construction, which was only 62% of the estimate. So it was at $329,618.65. All the bids were well under the estimate, and a couple of the bids were close to this one, so we feel comfortable with this bid even though it's pretty low. The work should begin no later than July 31st of this year and be completed within 60 days. This is a pretty straightforward project. It's mainly paving and storm sewer, very little water main, not a lot going on here, so it shouldn't take long. We are recommending accepting the bids and awarding the contract to Rachi Construction.
What size street is planned to connect up to the other one? Will it be the same size, or?
Well, it's the same size on the north end, but because it's an intersection mostly, that north leg, it ends up widening the entire length of it. It starts out at, I think it's 34 feet, and then it adds a left turn bay. So by the time it gets out to the intersection, it's pretty wide. I can get those amounts if you need them, but it tapers from a very small to a very wide street. So it matches the returns that's there now. And then we have a right turn decel lane that needs to be added to the highway east of the intersection.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Questions on that? Item 14 is the project calendar for the 2017 Lucor Road Reconstruction Project. We're all aware of where that is, but I will point out that Lucor Road is here. This is Hunter's Ridge Road, Silver Oak Trail, Camden Farms is here. The creek is down here with the bridge. We're proposing to do the project from the bridge location here to just north of Hunter's Ridge Road. Widening and paving with concrete. We are adding a trail on the right side and a 4-foot walk on the west side. We have stirred up the neighborhood a little bit as far as the HOA commitments, as far as their agreements at the time of development that they would put in sidewalks at the time that the street was paved. I think you'll probably have heard from some of them already, and you'll hear probably more from them on Thursday. The project itself, we're recommending that the work be performed. Really, the payment mechanism is really up to you on whether you want to follow through with those HOA agreements, what they sign, development agreements. We're in favor of doing that, of course, but it's really a separate issue from the project, I guess. The project is funded through the CIP. It's a little over budget, but we feel like the bids will come in within budget at the time. So we are proposing that sealed bids would be received on July 11th, with work beginning no later than August 14th and 145 working days. So this project is split up into, I think it's 5 phases. We're going to require the contractor to get 2 of the phases done in 17, and the remainder of the work would be done in 18. That is because Winslow Road reconstruction will go on probably through July, somewhere in July, and this project is not going to be allowed to start until that is open to traffic. So we're cutting down their period of time allowed to do construction this year.
I know that several of the council members have been contacted about this, and I've been contacted about it as well, about the sidewalk issue. I would suspect you'll have some folks here on Thursday night, and since I'm not going to be, I just wanted to iterate a couple of things for council for consideration when you take a look at that. The folks that I've talked to, I've pretty well tried to make clear that I don't think when you put a memorandum of agreement in place, it becomes the staff responsibility to come to the council and say, you need to carry that out when the triggers are hit. So in this case, the agreement is that when the road was reconstructed, that the associations would go ahead and put their sidewalks in. They're fully within their rights to come to you and make the case for why they shouldn't do that now, but I don't think you'll ever hear from the staff a recommendation to not follow through with an agreement that a prior council has approved, or from the staff who, I think it's been very clear on many projects, we've been very supportive of the installation of sidewalks and the continued build out of our network. This one has a few unique characteristics that I think are worth considering when you make that decision. One is that when Hunter's Ridge was allowed to be put in, several exceptions were made to the city's construction standards and subdivision codes that allowed for it to be developed. Primarily, you had streets that were put in that were not required to be full-depth concrete with curb and gutter, and then associated with that was the installation of the sidewalks. So anybody that bought property out there, in a normal subdivision where all those costs are stranded, everybody that's buying a lot with a full-depth concrete street and with sidewalks in front of it is paying for that when they buy their property. None of these properties out there had that, so the costs of the properties were less. At the same time, now where you on a normal concrete street, you expect that street to last anywhere from 40 to 60 years with ongoing maintenance. We're here less than 20 years later replacing both streets on either side between Winslow Road and Lucor, and that's not being paid by the developers. That's being paid by everybody else in the community of Marion. So from the staff perspective, I think that's why we don't think it's unreasonable to expect that the sidewalks be put in when these projects are being completed. You'll hear about how there's sidewalks that don't go to nowhere, or when you put them in, it should be 8 foot on both sides. At 8 feet on both sides, that's simply a way to defer maintenance over to the city, because we handle them at 8 feet if they're trails. If they're less than 8 feet, like the typical 5 feet, that reverts back to the property owners. So don't get caught in that one. The other thing that I would say is that with our entire sidewalk network, every time we do a new subdivision, if you go out there and look at Alburnett and Echo Hill Road, there are side paths that have been put in that stop, but they provide internal circulation for that subdivision, and that's been our standard when we've gone through and done reconstruction projects. That being said, the council's the one that has the purview to continue to grant a deferral. At the staff side, we can't do that. If you choose to do that, I don't think anybody on the staff side is going to take it as a personal offense. It'd be no harm, no foul to allow that to continue. But one of the things that I think would be curious to find out is if the sidewalks had been put in 20 years ago, what would they have cost versus what they're going to cost now. So if the council does defer it and it's another 10 or 15 years from now, you'll hear the same arguments over again. The same reasons for why we shouldn't put them in, you will hear that again. So it's endemic to whenever we've done sidewalk deferrals, we hear those arguments over and over. But just want to let you know from the staff side kind of where we're coming from on it.
The 2 other points I'd like to make is that they're probably not going to get them any cheaper than us doing them with a project this size. $1.5 million project, those costs are going to be really low. And secondly, construction costs are going up and up and up, and at some point of time when they do it, the inflation is going to eat up a lot of what those costs will be 5-10 years from now. The other comment I have is that yes, the sidewalks do end at the bridge down here and don't get all the way down, but several hundred feet down here, they do have a connection that could be made at some point in time. But also, it's part of a network up in this area. I mean, there's a lot of sidewalks. There's some non-connectivity within there, but those are because of the associations and the golf course and how that was addressed at those times. Those lack of connections within these areas are associated to being adjacent to the golf course. So it's kind of like the reverse argument there is that they've created a situation that they're using as an argument to not do it now. And even at that, a lot of the sidewalks along Silver Oak Trail, and there's a lot of places to walk out there. People do it for blue zone purposes, for exercise and so forth. I have a trail across from me that's about 2 blocks long that goes absolutely nowhere, and there's people on it every night. They're walking back and forth. They're using it for exercise. It's connected to the subdivision out front, so that they make a loop or whatever, but people do use them. They're not necessarily for transportation for getting somewhere. They're for exercise and for activity. So
we did receive communication from somebody in the neighborhood to the north saying that they were in favor of the sidewalks because of the connectivity. And it's one step in the right direction for future connectivity to the trail system that allows people to come all the way downtown.
You have sidewalks in this area and sidewalks in this area. We currently have a final plat that is doing development in this area that's going to add a bunch more homes.
There's
several
a
more
new
homes.
plat there?
Yes. You're just going to see more and more build out right there.
This is an assessment project? I mean,
it is not an assessment project. It is only as the development occurred, the developer's agreement stated that at the time that they deferred the sidewalks at that time, and at the time the street was reconstructed, that the HOAs would pay for the cost of the sidewalks. So it's just a recommitment of their agreement. We're not actually assessing them for it. It would be a reimbursement from them for us.
Okay. And did they pay 100% of it?
Yes.
Or they pay 100%?
Of the 4 foot. The 8 foot side, we would pay for the 4 foot.
Okay, the oversizing we would pay. And this really just involves the homeowners associations? There's nobody else along there that...
I think the only single families are right here, and they all have their sidewalk in along Lucor. They were double fronted and put those in at the time they were developed, Champions Estates. I think they're, yeah, I don't think, we've met with all the HOA presidents and discussed the situation with them and explained what their responsibility per the development agreement was.
Any questions? I know we have people here. I mean, is there anything wrong with hearing from them? I mean, if you speak tonight, you may not, I mean, you may not talk on Thursday then if you've already spoken, addressed the council tonight, but at least we'd have knowledge of some of the questions or you know, so that we can think about it some more before Thursday. Is that?
That's up to you. You're running a meeting.
Would that be okay to address the council tonight rather than Thursday? Okay. Please come forward.
I'm Wayne Engel, 3111 Silver Oak Trail from Camden Farms, and I'm going to put an overhead here. And of course, this is the piece right here that we are contesting. And Lon, you say it's a sidewalk from nowhere, but no, it's not. It's a sidewalk to the county. When people walk down from where we are, they hit the county, and we're encouraging people to go to the south and end up at the county. They can't go any further. There is no connectivity there. Our feeling is that the council in 2008 agreed with the logic that the sidewalk shouldn't go in because of that very reason, and nothing has changed. The same logic applies to not put that in. In fact, you create hazards when we start at Silver Oak Trail, go south, and we hit the county. Then we either have to return back or cross over the streets that will be widened, 40, 50 mile an hour traffic. It doesn't make any sense.
Is it going to be 40, 50 mile an hour traffic? Can't imagine that.
It's supposed to 35.
It's supposed to be 35, but if you live out there.
Yeah, no, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just answering his question.
Okay. And the truck traffic is terrible. So I guess that's our response. And my understanding, when the agreement was made, it was my understanding that we wouldn't be required to put this in until the bridge and the county put theirs in. So what we're asking is to defer it until it can be constructed from the south to our property. Then we'd be happy to do it. Questions?
Any questions for Mr. Engel? That would be your proposal, to defer it until the sidewalk on the current county land is put in?
Correct. Our president, who's here tonight, has written a letter, and I think that letter spells out what we would like to see the council approve.
It's going to cost a lot more money, they say, at that time. Maybe you want to put the money in escrow right now.
Well, I appreciate that, but if you don't do it at all, you save more money yet.
Well, yeah, but I don't think that not doing it at all is an option. I mean, the city, we want to make all the neighborhoods connected and give people the option to ride their bike or walk or whatever from one neighborhood to the next, to come all the way down here from your neighborhood and neighborhoods that are going to continue to develop to the north. So they have to go in at some point, and that's the city's policy, is to put in the sidewalks. But
I understand that, sir.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't make any sense. It connects not to nowhere, as Lon said, but to the county. and that's hazardous. We have many sidewalks around our pond, within our development. Hunter's Ridge has theirs. They walk the golf course. So it's walking for exercise. We have plenty. Appreciate your listening.
Thank you.
I do have a question, Dan. Camden Farms have done a wonderful job landscaping along Lucor Road. How close, we're going to widen the road, and what's going to happen? They have a nice sign and really a nice area over there.
We have notified them that all that landscaping comes out. I was here when that landscaping went in, and I had a personal conversation with Tim Mooney at the time and said, in fact, I think it went before council at the time, that cannot remain when the street is built because it's in the right-of-way and it's in conflict with the future sidewalk. So it's always been that intent that was only temporary. I know it's terrible, but we do not have enough room. We've tried to work around everything that we can, but because of the grades and because of the locations of the poles and so forth, there's no way we can avoid anything within that.
There's going to be a wider sidewalk on the north side of Lucor.
Well, I'd consider it the east side.
It'd be a 4-foot sidewalk.
4-foot sidewalk on the west side, on
your side.
golf course side.
Yeah, I can't speak about the north side, but I can about the south side.
The side on the Camden side, that's where we're proposing an 8-foot walk. It's a side path.
Dan, if that were to go in at the current time, if it were not to go in at the current time, then the landscaping, the fencing, and the signage could probably remain. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, no, we'd lose about half of it because of the paving width and the grading behind the curb and so forth. So.
Okay. We have any authority at all on the chicken people, I call them, on the county property, which is on the south side from there to the bridge on the other side of Camden's Lake?
Authority how?
Pardon me?
Authority how?
I mean, can we put a sidewalk in there and...
Yeah, the restriction is the bridge. The bridge deck is not wide enough currently to put pedestrians on it.
But we could put a sidewalk in there and assess the people that own that county land?
The county would probably work with us to do that, yes.
Is that the plan, to put the sidewalk on the county property right now?
No, there's not a current project. There's not a current city project addressing that.
So the sidewalk ends at the county line?
It actually goes into the county, adjacent to the project, and goes down to the bridge.
So the sidewalk will be in the county property?
Yes. There's one property on I'll call it the east side of Lucor that's in the county that we will put sidewalk on.
And then what's the time frame or thought for redoing the bridge?
Well, we currently have a project development going on right now that's not funded to repair the deck. If there's an interest, we could add, there's, I would say, significant cost to add sidewalk to that deck on one side or the other. The addition of walk down to Indian Creek Road would be insignificant. I don't think we would get the county to participate. They have talked about participating in the bridge deck repair, but as far as adding sidewalks to that alignment, I'm pretty sure they would not want to participate. But it would be fairly reasonable cost, I would think.
For just repairing the deck?
Pardon?
You're just talking about repairing the deck, not
No,
replacing.
doing sidewalk from the bridge down to Indian Creek Road would be a fairly reasonable cost. Adding, I really don't know what the cost would be to add. We'd have to add another 6 or 8 feet to the bridge width. We could do that through cantilevering the deck out and probably do something for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
We can look into that if there's an interest.
Does the Mole House property just to the other side of Camden's Lake own the property from there to the bridge? Don't they own all that property?
No, there's a property in there that's owned by the Roushes, and then by the
Heard that name before.
Reicherts.
They own both sides of the creek then, or how does that work?
Actually, he has it here. So here's Camden Farms.
Right.
This is the property you're talking about,
Yes.
and then Roush's own this property,
Ah,
and then this is owned by
and the bridge is right,
the little
right
farmhouse
by your
here.
finger?
We have a lot of right-of-way in here, though, so that's not a problem. So let's see, these three properties are in the county. We're proposing that we take sidewalk all the way down to the bridge, put a crossing in at the north end of the bridge so that people can go down, cycle around, and come back. Visibility is real good there, so we aren't concerned with that crossing being there. Otherwise, you'd have to go across the bridge and work all the way down to we have lots of trail and sidewalks down on the other side.
Are the properties on the south side of once you get across the bridge, have we annexed those two homes there before you get to Brookside?
We could, but it'd be in.
No, we haven't though. They're in the county. That's what I'm asking.
Yes, they're all in the
Okay.
county. That's correct.
Mr. Engel, before I forget, you might talk to Beth about your name and address for the,
I'm sorry, sir?
you might talk to Beth about your name and address for the minutes. Thank you. What about the safety issue that Mr. Engel mentioned? What are people doing now? Are people using that road with on bikes and
I
on
know
foot
people
without sidewalk?
Yeah, I think I know the bikers are using it. I can't talk about pedestrians. I don't live out that way, but
I've seen people running on it. I don't go out there a lot, but I see people.
The only way
running on
we
it,
get
so,
the
on
network
road.
built is to extend the network, and this is a big portion of that. Yes, there will be a gap left, but there's a lot smaller gap to do
Get
in
you
the future
closer.
than there will be. So, for me, it makes sense to do the work.
The letter is on the agenda to receive and file under planning. And our department's been kind of working with the homeowners, but I just want to jump in since clearly now is when we're talking about it. From a planning perspective, I think it's important to note, and the council should be aware of this, is that we're going back through all of our subdivisions that are old in which we have memorandums of understanding that have been signed to get sidewalks put in. The policy that the council adopted was to go back and to start addressing them 20 years, 15, 10, and 5. We're going to be out in Hunter's Ridge, I believe, in the next round, talking to all the gaps out there. Most of those lots were platted at the time, so if there's a platted lot out there with a gap, we're going to be addressing that back here in a very short period of time. What's being proposed is very consistent with the policy that the council adopted. It's a part of a project, is the only reason it's kind of being brought forward at this point. I would also point out that Indian Creek Road northeast of 35th and Lucor, all of the property, all of it, 80 acres or more, is owned by a developer. Just recent transaction. Development is going to start occurring on the northeast side of 35th, northeast of the roundabout. That whole area is going to, next year we will see plats on that property, and the network will be even more important because there's going to be people walking down and through those neighborhoods. We're also building a trail as a part of John Morris and Todd Wood's development on the old Indian Creek Road that would basically get you all the way down to Indian Creek Elementary and down into the center of the city, essentially. So, I mean, I think there's a lot that's going on outside of this project that supports that decision to get this thing rolling. On a personal note, for what it's worth, I lived across from Camden Farms for about 2-3 years, and there are a lot of people that walk in Hunter's Ridge, and you have to walk in the street because you walk up onto the sidewalk, then you walk down in the street. People just walk in the street. Runners are out there on the roadway. They were when I was out there, and you end up having to run in the street. Whether Dan's absolutely correct, and I wish we took more pictures of this. Whenever we put a large stretch of sidewalk in, it gets used. I don't care if it's a quarter mile, a half mile, 2 blocks, or 8 blocks. It gets used. Albernet Road across from Oak Ridge, if we didn't knock down the subdivisions and put the sidewalk in, we will never get access to Oak Ridge Middle School. If you go out right now, there's a gap between the access road to Oak Ridge Middle School and the subdivisions. So the question is, should we not have done any of those sidewalks to access that school, or waited until we had all it platted and do one large project? It makes sense to do these as they come about. So I just want to reemphasize the fact that if we want to be a walkable community, sidewalks need to go in, and this is a critical piece, in my opinion. So,
Well, for my part, as I told Mr. Engel when we talked that, I'm just interested in doing what makes sense. So I'm trying to get to come to what is it that makes sense in this situation. I mean, on one side, it's hard to imagine we're putting an urban road into this in this subdivision. We're making it an urban road, urban street, and it's hard to imagine such a street going in without sidewalk. Particularly when we're going back and finding all the gaps around the city and asking those people to put in sidewalks. On the other side, we don't know when it's going to be totally connected, and we don't know when we'll be able to improve a bridge or.
It's an isolated network, but it's a pretty big network when you actually look at how much sidewalk there is out there.
It increases that internal network for now.
Yes, significantly.
Yeah. Any other questions? Is there anyone else who wanted to address the council tonight rather than Thursday? I'm sure we'll hear from others on Thursday.
Different item, Tom. You finally succeeded. Indian Creek Road sidewalk. They're putting in this week.
Fantastic. That's good news. Yeah. Well, that's been a long time coming.
Oh, only 10 or 12 years.
Just one more comment.
Okay.
Regarding Tom's comment about having to walk the streets. Yeah, we do walk the streets, but even south of Indian Creek Road, where you just put in the 8-foot and the 4-foot, people still walk in the street. They ride bicycles in the street.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is?
That's not the problem. And we can talk about connectivity forever, but the piece that we're asking to get deferred doesn't do a thing for connectivity.
Okay, thank you. Maybe it doesn't matter, but how much are we talking about in terms of the dollar value of the putting in this?
I was afraid you were going to ask me that.
Oh.
I can have it for Thursday.
Okay.
We have it amount. I just didn't bring it with me.
North side was 9,000. It's going to cost the owners.
For you.
Yeah.
For that HOA,
Right.
yeah. I don't want to even make a guess.
For the 8-foot. No, for the 4-foot. Yeah.
4-foot.
Yeah. 4 feet. Yeah.
It's a decent sized number, but it's over. I don't know how many HOAs.
They don't have
there
any
are,
grading
4 or 5
over there.
Yeah.
You wouldn't.
I mean, their cost at this time doesn't include grading, doesn't include any adjacent requirements like retaining walls, anything. We're only required to charge them for a 4-foot by 4-inch walk. If they go in that later, they're going to pay for grading, sidewalk, retaining walls that are needed. They're going to pay for seating, establishment of that seating. All that stuff will be part of that cost.
With this project, the city's going to take care of it.
We're covering all those. That's typically our policy, is to cover all those extraneous costs.
So this is never going to cost
We're going to cost them less.
Less than it is now,
My opinion.
in your opinion. You're the expert.
Maybe.
Okay. Any other questions?
Okay. Move on to the next item, which is item 15, which is another project. This is the 2017 31st Street Rehabilitation Project. We did provide within current CIP funding for neighborhood street improvements. That funding is being divided up in between some projects. One of those we're proposing is the reconstruction of north of 12th Avenue, I think it is, 11th or 12th Avenue. That's coming forward at a future date. Right now, we're looking at 31st Street from 1st Avenue to 3rd Avenue. That's a concrete street now. It's next to the ballpark there. We are going to rehabilitate it. We're proposing to rehabilitate it. In other words, we're going to take out all the bad locations and do full depth patching within it and then grind it for smoothness. That project is estimated to cost about $151,000. We estimate that reconstruction would be well over $320,000. So we think we can extend the life of this pavement by many years just by doing this patching and grinding and have a product that'll be very close to new when we're done. So, we're proposing that we set this up for letting to accept sealed bids on July 11th. We would then, work would begin no later than September 11th and be done within 20 working days. This should be a fairly quick project. We are having liquidated damages of $500 a day because it does affect traffic pretty well. We will close it and detour traffic around it. So.
That's beyond asphalting, Dan.
We do not feel like asphalting is a solution in this case. We would have to take, the concrete is doing what they call de-cracking. The concrete, the cement, is no longer bonding at the joints, which is allowing the concrete to crumble.
Yeah, it's not good.
Even if we overlaid it, we would have to go in and take those joints out and fix them. So even if we do this, and let's say it doesn't hold up, given time in 10 or 12, 15 years, it would be ready for overlay. Okay. So it's a first step. So it's not money wasted either way.
Thank you.
Yep. Questions more? Yes.
No, are you moving on to number 16?
I have a question, comment on that.
This is actually the patching pattern. We're taking quite a bit, but it still leaves quite a bit. We're also going to, we're going to improve the alignment with the south leg at this location as well. So, good.
Well, it's bad. Is there any question about that?
Yeah, kind of. Question/comment. So I notice every year when softball's going on that everybody parks along 31st. Has ever been talked about of making parking, because there's a huge grass field there, or grass easement or whatever, to make parking along out of the road and have parking along the side of the road? Has that ever been brought up? Because there's always 30 cars parked in the road for softball.
You're talking about not actually parallel parking, but actually adding on-site parking?
Kind of like what we have uptown, where you pull in, I don't know how to explain it.
No, not that I'm aware of any discussion. I know there's plenty of pavement width there now, I would.
Oh, I think he's saying a parking lane off of the street. So
parking lane, sure, yeah. Parking lane off
actually widening the paving?
Yeah.
For that, along the ballpark there.
Parking lane.
Because the parking lot for the ballpark is always full. And then everybody parks in the street, and then you've got congestion in the street for a couple months out of the year.
I think with the parking that exists there now, it works pretty good with 2 lanes of traffic. I mean, we could do that. We're not proposing as part of this project. I think it
Sure. I just brought it up because I noticed it.
I've never had that discussion, and I think that would probably be something that the Parks Department might want to have with the Parks Board.
I don't know if it's ever been brought up or talked about before that you know of, but
I know we've talked once or twice about restricting parking along there, and it hasn't gone well. So. That would be popular.
That wouldn't be. People wouldn't like that. No. No. A lot of people go there.
I've seen some of those kids hit, and I don't know how close you want to get your
true.
cars to the outfield.
That's a consideration.
Yeah, some of those girls got some power.
Dan, would you totally close the street for that, or would you have it 1 lane passable? Or?
My impression is we're going to close it. It'll probably take 4 weeks. We could theoretically leave one side open. I guess I don't remember what the plans specified, I guess. I can have that answer.
There's a lot of people going down to, the bypass there on 31st.
Yeah, there are other options, but not good ones, I guess. But yeah, let me check on that, Joe, and I'll
Okay.
let you know.
At least it'll only be 20 days, which
20 working days, which is
Right.
about 4 weeks.
yeah.
Jim, would you mind discussing number 16 at the end of your section? Moving it to the end of your...
Oh, sure. Yep. So number 17 has to do with our Indian Creek Sanitary Sewer Capacity Improvement Project, segment number 7. This kind of came up kind of randomly. The Wilkinsons basically own this little piece of property here. They used to own everything to the west down through here, and they sold that to somebody who then sold it to Terry Bjornson. So they have had conversations with Terry about buying this piece as well. They would rather the city have it because the sanitary sewer runs down through the middle of it, and the new sewer will probably run through there, and possibly the trail will run through there. So it just makes sense for us to own it. They want to sell it to us. They'd rather we have it so that it's not used as leverage against us in the future with these projects. We've agreed on a price of $1,250. It's assessed at around $800, $850. We feel it's a fair price. They would really like to sell it, and we'd really like to buy it. So any comments, questions on it? Does everybody understand where it's at? I guess I didn't really point that out. Menards is up here. Highway 100 is here. This is the end of Tama, south. This is Indian Creek, comes down through.
And Falcons Woods is right
Yep, Falks Woods is right here.
How do you say it?
So,
I didn't realize there was a house. Is that a house up there north of that?
where's that?
Or straight up from that, right there?
Oh, yeah. Tama comes down, and there's a house here, there's a house here, there's a couple houses down in
I
here.
didn't know there was anything back there.
The Frank Lloyd Wright house is about right up in here. So we'll go ahead, and if that's what council would like to do, we'll go ahead and proceed with purchase of that. One of the smaller ones we've done. Next item is number 18, which is our stormwater utility fee, chapter 15709 and 10. He's going to talk about what we're proposing for increasing of fees associated with this utility. So, Steve is our stormwater coordinator. Thanks, James. Didn't mean to run you off.
We are experiencing technical difficulties. It worked this afternoon when we tried it.
I wonder if it's connected now. I'll find out.
We do this without you.
If we jump down to, while they're doing it, I'll jump down to item 19.
Yes.
What was saying?
I'll move to 19 for now. Yeah.
Item 19 is a request for a waiver of driveway specifications for Mr. Berger, Matt Berger at 5875 Lynn Air Avenue, which is east of Highway 13. The west of the Medco site, does everybody understand where I'm talking about? Southeast of Walmart, south of Sprayland, just north of Linmar Bus Barn.
This is an industrial property?
Yes. Oh, there we go. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's finish this.
So basically, Mr. Berger has a building there now, and he is requesting to add a new building to the east of that building. He is requesting a waiver of several, as you can see in my memo, several requirements of SUDAS and our design standards. I'm not going to be able to do that. So we looked at it and reviewed what he's requesting. You should have some correspondence from him in your packet. Basically, it he's requesting that the minimum driveway spacing be waived, that he be provided 2 accesses, which is only 1 per lot now, given the classification of Linmar, or Linaire Drive. The right turn radius is 10 feet, which is also needs to be waived. The radius overlap of the adjacent property would also need to be waived. And he's also asking to fill the areas on both sides of the radiuses with textured concrete. We have done that only in 2 locations, at the post office and at Casey's down here on South 11th, because of turning movements of their delivery trucks. I did not get the impression from him that that was the issue. He just wanted to display his concrete, his colored concrete, which is part of his business. But that's your decision on whether you feel that's adequately impacted or not, and whether you should allow that. We are recommending that we would not allow this to occur. There are many examples around town of what he wants to do, but since we have adopted SUDAS and with the new restrictions, part of these are part of new adoptions, new restrictions, new requirements of SUDAS, but they are our current standard for driveways on collector streets.
Are there any particular hardships by this denial, or that are being caused?
Not in my mind, maybe in his. I've talked to Matt once or twice. He just wants to build a building that's comparable to the one he has now, which has 2 driveways, which are very close together, which creates conflict with traffic and so forth, and feels that it's worth his time to come to you and ask for a waiver. So.
Okay. Sir, would you like to address?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, you'd have to come forward and state your name and address, and then.
Thanks, Matt. I didn't use that. Well, that's going to be hard now. Let's try this.
Okay, long story short, I'm Matt Berger, 5875 Linear Avenue.
Welcome.
I'm in the process of, I've started a building, future expansion, a 12,000 square foot building. What happens on that 1.5 acre lot, I've got it to the front, so I have another future building at 12,000 square feet I want to put behind it, not to mention other buildings on the lot that I have to the east. So I have a plan, long-term plan, but the only way to access this building with my 2 doors, so this here, for example, is option 1 that I had requested. I was going to put a door in the center, or there's 2 doors here, okay? 2 overhead 22-foot wide doors, they're large doors, similar to what I have in my building next door. I was looking to do a little bit elevated concrete. I can make this turn and make it work, but it work either way. I mean, long story short, I'm going to do this if I have to. I want to be able to make that corner and that transition easier to get in there. And then secondly, I want to be able to have a shared driveway here if I had to, half on this lot that I own, to access the multiple buildings I want to put in the back side of this. So we've expanded. We're running across the street, so this was the best option for us. Like, we've already started the foundation. We got it's a 12,000 square foot building. I want to do an additional one here in the future. I cannot access it unless I do something a little different. Now, option 2, which is very similar to what I have in the building next door to me, I have a driveway here into that door, a driveway here, and then I can bridge into this lot going that way to reach the other 12,000 square feet. And I want to, which has not been approved, obviously, but I got this one, at least the building, the preliminary is done. Another building over here. I've got a lot of room to put a lot of buildings. I have no retention on that lot. All the retention goes to the south. I can put a lot of building there. And potentially rent whatever I want to do. I mean, whatever the city lets me do, of course. What I'm asking for here is nothing that is not everywhere on my street or the street next door. Whether I go on this option 2, there's driveways, several properties there that have driveways that are closer than what the code calls for now. And if I go down the street, there's even wider, bigger driveways. I understand the rules have changed. I'm trying to make this property, which I've had for a long time. I've been a 25-year business in Marion. I need this for an expansion. I don't want to rent. I can't make it work, and I'm not going to shove it to the back of the lot and put a huge parking lot out in the front. This has given me 55 feet to pull out there. It's not like that's having continual traffic all the time. It's storage to start, and it's only going to have, a few trucks coming in there. My main business is next door to the west. But I can't make it work if I don't do either option 1 or option 2 because I want to do more, okay? So I want to have more buildings here, more rentals, income in the future. So that's what I'm proposing. That's what I want to do. Like I said, it's on my street in several places, not just mine. I know he's saying that the rules have changed. I get it. I just need to make it work so we can put more buildings in that area without paving the whole front yard and then trying to get around and trying to make, across the street Wholesale Feeds has a hard time getting out of their property, but they got a lot of paving. I'm in the concrete business. I want to sell paving, but I want to have paving between the buildings and have more buildings. So that's my plan. That's what I'd like to do. Any questions?
I understand and appreciate your position. I'm trying to figure out, there's lots of things people would like to do, but for the rules. If that's what the rules say, I'm trying to figure out is there a hardship you're going to suffer if you don't get this waiver? Is there?
Well, what I'm going to do then, if I don't do it, is I'm going to have you driving on grass to get in there. I'm going to be cutting the corners to get into the doors. Just what's going to happen. And if I don't
Because you have to build that particular building, or?
I'm doing the building. I need it. I mean, it's 12,000 square feet, and I got another 12,000 I want to do behind me. I mean, that's a huge tax. I'm putting up a lot of money to do these buildings.
No, and I appreciate that. I'm not
trying to
belittling what
really
you're
bend
doing.
the rules necessarily, Mayor. I'm trying to figure out a way that'll work so I can use the whole property instead of not using it. So that's I'm going to do the single driveway anyways. I'm just going to be driving on dirt on the easement a little bit to get in there if I can't do it. I mean, that would pass according to what I've heard. This option would. I'm just not going to have decorative concrete there. I'm not selling the decorative concrete. In my building now, I have elevated decorative concrete about this far on the aprons to make my aprons a little bigger so I wasn't in the dirt or in the landscaping. I'm just going to have to landscape that, and I'll probably have to cut the corner. That's just the way it's going to be. But I'm trying to make it a little bit aesthetically pleasing, and it's not like there's not a lot of traffic coming out of my building. So that's where I'm at.
Question.
With that option number 1, would you still be able to put a drive back to your back property?
I'd have to share that driveway there with my other lot, and I think put 10 foot on that lot and 10 foot on that or whatever I do, and then just have to. But I want to put a building. I might end up joining these and putting a building right on that property. I just don't know how it's going to work. But I know for sure to get to the back 12,000 square feet, I'm going to have to put a driveway. And the way I understood it, talking to Darren, that potentially this could happen. Is that not correct? Have half driveway on the property, on each property?
It depends on, there's a limit on separation, so we'd have to look at it. I think that's correct,
I
but
think
I'm not
in
going
the-
to say one way or the other right now.
My understanding is there's 2 accesses per lot within the spacing, correct?
If they're far enough apart, yes.
Yeah. So I can always shut and close that down to make that work, but I just didn't want to have to use that on the property line if I didn't have to.
You own the lot to the east.
I own the lot to the east. So, I own the lots. I've had them for a long time, bought them from Verhilla years ago, and I've had it just for this reason, because I want to expand.
Well, the good news is that your business is going well and you need to expand. That's good news.
Well, thank you, yes. 25 years I've been in Marion, so whether I'm renting or doing this, so we've been here a long time. So, any other questions? And there's a lot more important things.
Other
Thank
questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Yep, thanks, Matt.
Other questions for Dan on this one?
Yeah, is it clear what he's asking? Within the memo, you can kind of see what the requirements are within the first portion of my memo, and then the second half are those areas that have to be waived from specifications.
So it's this SUDAS design standards is just changed in January, correct?
Well, no, we updated it in January. It was
so is the updated?
It's been fairly recently. I want to say within the last 2 years.
Okay, so the update where is limiting this is updated previous to January, because you see in the memo it talks about January 12th.
I think we might have adopted them at that a year ago, January.
Okay.
Yeah. That's.
Are there conditions or parameters under which you would support a waiver? I mean, I'm not necessarily for this situation.
Yeah.
Any waiver, of the standards or the rules. What do you normally look for to support a waiver?
SUDAS is a statewide standard. It's based on a lot of research and a lot of traffic design and development and research that limits conflict and accidents and those types of things. So it's a professional standard for what to go by. There are situations that I would say I would probably support a waiver. However, I think the decision of a waiver is council's. I do not.
No, I get that.
I don't want to. You get into the point where you provide too many waivers, and then we cannot enforce the rules. People will just do it. However, if you case by case can say this waiver makes sense, you're not going to hurt my feelings at all. If it makes sense to you and it helps his business and it doesn't create what would consider a high-prone accident situation, I probably would not support it, but I definitely wouldn't be against it by any means.
What kind of a precedent is it setting?
As long as you do a waiver, you're not really setting a precedence, I guess, other than the fact that you'll probably have a lot more people in front of you asking for waivers. Because we go through a lot of these. We have a lot of requests, and we say, no, you can't. Your option is to council, and 99% of them don't go to council. You just don't ever see them. So.
And they go ahead and do what they want anyway? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Oh.
No.
Okay.
I guess I'm confused. I got confused there. Do you have so the picture that you've got in the packet, do you have the copy of that you can put up on the overhead and explain?
I do not have, I think within your count, you have what he wanted to do, but that's.
So the red dot is what is the property we're talking about, and nothing's there.
Hopefully that'll focus. There we go. This is Matt's building here.
The current building?
Current building. You can see he has 2 wide driveways.
Right.
And you can see that this site is exactly the same as far as size and everything.
And you would do the same
it's just
thing.
not wide. It's not wide enough for 2 driveways and still meet the standards of separation from each other and from the property line. You can see that there are 2 driveways. I find myself here. They're close together. That was done back. I think that was done just before I got here in 2001.
So he wants to make the nether building he wants to build is exactly the same layout as that building right there.
I think so.
Very similar. You see, the thing is, what I'm trying to do, you can't really see it from my building there, which is that dark one. Let's see, where am I? I'm right there. Okay, I have the same driveway there, just a little bit. This building's a little smaller, There's one driveway like that there, there's another one down the street, and there's another one down the other street. So the thing is, the precedent is set is that this development's almost full for the most part in my area. Going to the east, they even still have the same thing going on. I know mine's probably a little bit different traffic, but there's several of these in this area. I'm not asking for anything that's way out of the ordinary. There's a lot larger driveway situations like that just east of me, and brand new construction going on up the streets doing the same thing, building it right now. Same thing that I'm asking for. I just a little too close to driveways.
Some of the locations that he's talking about are on local streets. The standards are different for local streets. This is a collector, which has more strict requirements because it has more traffic and bigger traffic. So bigger trucks. It's a connector. It collects everything off the highway to the subdivision. One of the ones he cited is on a local street.
That's Partners. That's a little different.
Yes,
Is that
yes.
what's the street just to the east of me? This street here.
44th
44th. Is that a collector?
or 62nd. Sorry.
62nd. Is that a collector too as well?
It probably is.
It has a huge mammoth one. It's doing the same thing as me as a business, just around the corner from me. I mean, within an acre, or I mean, 300 feet.
It must have been. It had to have been done prior to this.
Well, they all are. I'm just saying, there's so many on that street. I'm really not. If I was coming in and out of that thing all the time, I'd say okay. But mine has worked perfect. It lets me put more buildings in the property. It really does. It's that simple. I understand, but there's 4 driveways right within that street. I just want to do the same thing, and I own the rest of the street, so I guess that's what I'm.
So you own the property to the east of it too.
Yeah, I owe all.
But you wouldn't be doing the 2 same type of driveways. So you wouldn't have 6 in a row.
I'll be able to have 2 driveways in that because I have 2 streets, so it's a little bit easier
Gotcha.
for me to access. I can have one on Linear and one on 62nd.
So if Linear wasn't a collector, then this would be fine?
Yeah, this is the main access to all
But
of this.
I mean, if it wasn't
Yes, it would be allowed on a local.
on a local street, it'd be allowed.
Yes.
But because it's a collector, it's not allowed.
Right. And that's why you can see that he has that, I agree, but this is they have a secured drive and a non-secured drive, and that's why there's 2. And I think this was like the first building built out there, so it's been a long time ago. Yeah. So, and you can see that condition doesn't exist except for his, for the most part.
I'm concerned, I'm questioning, how much traffic do you think you will have out of those 2 buildings once you build them? Because, I know the school buses, that's where they come out and go and get on, to go. And in the morning, I'm guessing at 3 o'clock time, I'm sure that's just a zoo.
7:30 and 2:30.
So you have to speak at the microphone. Thank you.
Sorry, 7:30 and 2:30 because I've been living that, obviously there for 8-9 years now. I'm gone by 7.
Okay.
My trucks, I'm gone. I'm 6:37. We're gone. We know that we're gone by 7:30, and they're way gone. We get back at 5, 6, whatever it may be. That doesn't become a problem for us. We've used to it. We just know. We plan to be in our office or out of our shop between 6 and 6:30 every day. 6:45 at the max. They fly through at 7:30, and then they come back at 2:30. And they all come back 62nd. They don't come by me. They don't come by me on the way back in to end. They always go 62nd.
Yeah.
Most
Okay.
generally.
All right. Because I was just curious on the timing for the traffic flow through that and safety, because SUDAS is dealing with safety, and I could see the safety concerns at certain times of the day with all that bus traffic going through there, because that's a lot of buses going through there at certain times of the day.
They leave that way, no doubt. Each day they leave that way at 7:30 and 2:30.
Okay. Thank you.
I won't need to talk tomorrow. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. You're welcome to talk, but I just wanted you to speak at the microphone because these meetings are taped, and so people listen to the meetings and they want to hear what's being said. So, thank you.
These 2 driveways are 2 separate properties, but just to be clear. Okay. Any other questions? We'll try to have Steve do his thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Steve Cooper, the Stormwater Coordinator. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's going on with our stormwater utility these days. First of all, purpose of a stormwater utility is to recover. Things are getting more expensive. We need to recover the costs that are associated with stormwater management. That could be the planning, design, construction, any kind of debt service that we have with it. We also have to be in compliance with EPA and IDNR regulations or obligations, that's what they like to call them these days. The Clean Water Act, the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, NPDES. The City of Marion is what's called an MS4 city with the DNR, Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. Bottom line with all this, there are costs associated with making sure that we are protecting our water supply and our water resources. So that's what the stormwater utility is about. Our stormwater utility fee is based on an ERU, equivalent runoff unit. It's also called an equivalent residential unit, depending on what city it's in. In Marion, our ERU, one ERU equals 2,791 square feet. That is the statistical average if you were to put all of the, if you look at the average single-family residential unit in Marion. These are maps. I'm wondering if we can get that cleared up a little bit. It's not centered, but these are maps that are about the same scale of different places in Marion. You can see that residential properties are different sizes and shapes. You put all those together, and you get a statistical average of, for when you look at roofs, sidewalks, driveways, patios, 2,791 square feet. That is what we consider to be one equivalent runoff unit. We have two types of residential or of stormwater utility accounts. One is residential, that is single-family units all the way up to fourplexes, threeplexes, duplexes. Everything else is considered non-residential, commercial, industrial, larger apartment complexes, 5 units or more. Agricultural land that's within the city limits of Marion, that's part of the stormwater utility as well. This includes schools and churches. These are how we develop or determine the storm or the impervious surface areas on non-residential parcels. We have a geographic information system. We draw lines around the borders, find out where the edges of the parking lots are, the edges of the buildings. The GIS then tells us how many square feet that is per each parcel. And then we take that to the fee structure for residential. That is $1.59 right now per ERU, plus a $3.33 administrative fee. So each resident right now pays $4.92 per month for their stormwater utility fee. Back in 2013, that originally started off as $1.55 with a $3.25 administration fee. So we did do an increase back in 2015 from the 2013 original fees. The non-residential, we take that square footage from the GIS. We divide that by the 2,791 square feet to get the ERU for that, and multiply the $1.59 per ERU at the $3.33 administrative fee, and that's what their stormwater utility fee is. There are credits that are available if they are eligible, up to 65% off of your stormwater utility fee if you are non-residential. If you have detention basins, retention basins, bioretention swales, anything that is going to manage stormwater before it runs off your property, you can get a credit for that and reduce your stormwater utility fee. The maximum that we have right now for any non-residential unit is $156.80. That matches what Cedar Rapids has for their stormwater utility fee, or actually had, because here's what to compare to Cedar Rapids, they're based on daily. They have an interesting way of doing their billing where it's daily, not monthly. We just, in Marion, would call it a month. So it's a little bit simpler for billing. There's a flat residential fee, but in this, prior to fiscal year 17, they had a non-residential structure that had nothing to do with impervious surface area. It was just if you were a commercial or industrial parcel in Cedar Rapids, the size of your parcel, regardless if it was hard surface or not, you would get charged your stormwater utility fee based on one of their 9 tiers, and it was only for parcels that had an associated utility account that they could bill it on. Cedar Rapids didn't want to send any bills out that weren't on actual utility fees or on utility bills. Then they did set the maximum in Cedar Rapids of $156.80. That's where we got ours from. But last summer they approved a different system, kind of like ours, an ERU system. So as of July 1st, 2016, their ERU system is 1/10 of an acre, 4,356 square feet. They go on 17 cents per day per ERU. That was the way it was for fiscal year 17, but they increased that just recently. So fiscal year 18 is going to be 18 cents per ERU per day. So a typical residence in Cedar Rapids used to pay $5.18. Now they're going to pay, starting on July 1st, 2017, they're going to pay $5.48 a month. They're phasing out of the maximum. They've got for fiscal year 17 100 ERUs, and then next year's 200 ERUs. You can see there that the maximum charges are quite a bit more as you go down the line in Cedar Rapids. So it's going to cost a lot of money in Cedar Rapids if you have a big piece of property with a lot of parking lots. So this is the new structure that Cedar Rapids has. That gives us a chance to take a look at our structure and see what we might want to change for that. And really we don't have to change much because it's kind of the similar system that Cedar Rapids pretty much kind of adopted what we have.
Once again, we're leading the way.
Yeah, we are. We're right at the edge there. So if we were simply to do a 5% across the board increase for our fees, that would bump up the base ERU fee from $1.59 to $1.67. The administrative fee goes from $3.33 to $3.50 per month. Residential accounts would go from $4.92 a month to $5.17, which is still below what Cedar Rapids is. We're still cheaper to live in for stormwater utility fees. And most of the non-residential properties in Marion will actually 83% of them will be paying less than $2 a month extra for this proposed $5 or 5% fee. We're proposing a phase out of our maximum fee, and that would actually only affect 14 parcels in Marion. Those are the big parcels, big parking lots. You got Hy-Vee, Walmart, Collins Road Square, Linn-Mar. The first phase of this would take the maximum fee right now of $156.80 is the same thing. It's 96.5 ERUs. So you take that maximum, and then you look at those 14 parcels, what their actual maximum is, the actual impervious surface, and what the ERU would be for that. The first year, split that in half, and I have a spreadsheet on the next slide that shows each of these. Split it in half so they pay half of their new fee for the first year, and then the second year, fiscal 19, it would be gone. They would just pay whatever is based on it. And of course, I've got a document that as soon as, if this were to get passed on Thursday, we'd be sending a letter out to all 14 property owners telling them specifically what's going to happen with their stormwater utility bill. Here is, you can't really see it very well, these are the 14 parcels. It basically says what they're paying now and then what they would pay with this first phase and then what they would pay ultimately in fiscal year 2019.
Can you read some of those? 'Cause I can't quite see it.
I can't because I don't see it here. Collins Road Square right now everybody pays $156.80. The Collins Road Square would then pay half of what their maximum would be, which would go up to $248, and then ultimately they'd wind up paying $321. Linn-Mar is the one who would get hit the hardest. In fiscal 19, they would wind up paying $1,100 a month. Now, that would also give them reason to install some more best management practices like detention basins, bioswales. Right now, there's no incentive based on our fee to go out there and actually do something to hold back that stormwater. They might want to think about that now because they could cut their bill down 65% if they were to install some more detention basins and stormwater best management practices.
You could cut it by 65% or down to 65%?
Cut it down to 32% of what it is right now. You can get up to 65% off.
Reduce it by 65%.
Right now, the structure is you can get 25% off your bill if you have something that manages the stormwater quantity, that's the volume of water that comes off. If you also have, if that detention basin or whatever that practice is also controls the water quality, which means the water that comes off of your land stays there and filters back through. That means that really nothing's getting off except for the big storms. That's another 25%, so you can get up to 50% off just by doing that. Plus, if you have additional things on there, pervious pavers. Well, pervious pavers wouldn't be part of that, but if
Are they aware this is coming?
Not yet. Like I said, I have a letter that will go out to them. If this is passed on Thursday, we'll send it out immediately so everybody knows this is coming down the way.
We have to go through an ordinance on that. So you're passing, approving, moving forward with the ordinance.
Okay.
Right. This would change a few sections of the stormwater utility ordinance, but the whole ordinance.
It's the first step to move forward with
And they get 1 year to basically adjust?
That's entirely up to council, Mayor. That's why we're bringing it forward. We wanted you to see what was going on, because when we first implemented these, the council at the time was very concerned about comparability with Cedar Rapids, and so we limited particularly our top tier of bills to be in line with theirs because of the competitive issue. Now, Cedar Rapids is poised to really take the limits off theirs and actually start charging according to the amount of stormwater that those entities contribute to their system. So engineering took a look at it, and we discussed it internally to say what should we be doing and where should we be heading with ours. Steve's correct in that, I mean, for the top producers in a stormwater system, the rates are set up and intended to provide a significant incentive for them to adopt better stormwater management practices, because otherwise they won't. There's no reason for them to. It's cheaper to just allow it to go off into the system, which is where we get to deal with it. And in this case, it just happens in Marion that that's a public entity. But if you think about like Cedar Rapids, that's going to be your Rockwell Collinses, your ADMs, your Quakers, and Pepsis. We just don't have those large industries that have that footprint, so it means that our biggest producer is a public entity.
Those larger properties are the ones that impact our system the most, and so we want to encourage them to reduce their runoff.
And they have viable options to do that? I mean, those exist?
Yes, I think so. They're not cheap, but given their 40-year life expectancy, it adds up. The other thing is that council did defer those maximum costs, what year was it, 15? Several years ago, so they've known this is coming, not that they've known that it's imminent, but that they knew that at some point in time.
Okay, so they
knew
have
at some point in time they were going to
knowledge of,
okay. That was part of the original discussion.
And this is just a proposal at this point, and we're seeking a motion directing staff to proceed with drafting the ordinance, but it would be entirely up to you if you wanted to say we want to do a different phasing schedule and do it over 4 years or something like that. I don't think there's any pride of authorship or that this is something we're going to die on our swords over, but I did want to bring it to your attention that, now we don't have that issue with Cedar Rapids where we would be making ourselves uncompetitive by moving that direction.
I don't disagree with making changes, but we've been following Cedar Rapids at 159 or 158 and whatever maximum, and they have a longer phase-in. Spreading that out, I would would like to consider looking at that structure of the phase-in maximums like they have laid out, so that we are matching up with them as we're moving forward, and it gives those bigger 14 landowners the opportunity to deal with that over a longer period of time than it is in a 2-year phase-in approach.
Well, we had to start somewhere with it. Right. That was kind of the quick way of doing it. I did want to show you a little bit about what our. Sorry.
I just had a question. Do you think we really need to raise the residential? Is it just mainly the commercial that we need to raise? I'm just wondering.
I think council, during the budget process, placed a 5% increase within their proposed budget, and that's why we're following that.
Oh, okay.
I guess that's up to you whether you want to do that or not.
Yeah, the way that I constructed it in the budget is I didn't make a specific proposal about where it would go because I knew that Cedar Rapids was looking at this. And if you think back, we discussed that during budget, that Cedar Rapids was making changes and we needed to study it in a little bit more detail. So we just targeted percentage increase for the budget, but how that's applied would be really entirely up to council.
Are current fees paying our current budget for that department?
We always try to keep that one, to contribute a little bit to the fund balance every year. I think in this fiscal year, we're actually going to be drawing against the fund balance a little bit. And then with the programmed increase next year, we'd be adding a little bit back into it.
But the stormwater department's not costing us any money currently.
I think in this current fiscal year, we are running a little bit of a deficit, but that was programmed into the budget.
I see a great advantage of having less tax in Cedar Rapids. We're trying to develop commercial property here.
And it still is cheaper it would be less expensive commercially.
But you're talking about a 700% increase with some of them.
For 14 parcels, yeah. or maybe not even all 14, because not all of those 14 are at
If we
that
do
maximum.
this, I'd like to see how they can get a 90% credit. You know, I mean, if the department is supporting itself, you know, we don't have to make money. The PD doesn't make money. Tom doesn't make any money. You know, Ryan, we're providing a service for the stormwater runoff, and if it's paying for itself now, that I don't see any reason to increase it at all.
But not only goes to the department, but it also pays for capital projects as well, which are being limited based on the funding available.
That's what I was going to address, is that, you know, this is a case, I mean, if you look at some of the projects that are just coming down the pipe, we've got one that's going to be supporting commercial development along the central corridor that's going to cost about $360,000. We have a very large regional detention basin out there off of Echo Hill Road that's going to be coming our directions. It's probably 7 figures. So while we're supporting the operations and we're supporting some of the smaller capital projects, we have not been able to bite off the bigger ones that are the ones that are going to allow Marion to continue to develop in the future. And that's where it's been hitting us. I mean, if you were to look back to what the original projections were when we first instituted the stormwater utility, at this point, I still don't think, even with all the extra accounts and everything we've added, I'd be surprised if we're actually collecting yet what we originally projected that we would based on that original proposed fee schedule. And while I agree that, you know, you don't want to charge more than you have to, the council approved the capital improvements plan. You know, we've got 47 some odd $1 million worth of unfunded projects that are showing up in there. And if we want to be able to realistically start whittling away at some of those, at least in this case, you've got an opportunity that there is a dedicated source of revenue. This isn't something that gets diverted to other uses or something like that. It gets spent on stormwater, so we know where it goes.
Stormwater fee, in my opinion, should only be used for stormwater, not put aside on a street somewhere, you know, I mean, if it's supporting itself now, I would say again, I think you're crucifying business. It'd be like saying, all right, we're going to keep it at 365 on dwellings, but if you paint your house, we're going to lower it. I mean, you know, I just doesn't make sense to me to do what you're going to do to business. That's why we ended up with a 365 or whatever the minimum is now. Before, we tried to do this when we started it. So did Cedar Rapids. And we said, hey, you know, it's going to crucify the school districts and our big, you mentioned Walmart, Hy-Vee. Yeah, they can afford to pay it. You know, the taxpayers have to pay Linmar's. You know, we're increasing a little bit our millage rate, and now we're at this. Garbage is going up. Somewhere we have to say, guys, you know, we're getting enough out of our tax dollars. You know, we're charging enough for them. Business is business. I don't care if you can say, all right, Hy-Vee can afford to pay it. Sure as hell they can. But that isn't the purpose of the thing at all.
And we're not intending to do that, Paul, but at the same time, we can't ignore the fact that those are the ones creating the costs that everyone else is assuming. When we originally adopted the stormwater management fees, we shifted cost burden away from businesses over to residential by making that residential fee higher. So ever since then, residents in the city have been paying higher stormwater fees than their proportional share that's going into the system because we've been subsidizing those costs for businesses.
But
And if that's okay, if the council wants to do that, that's your prerogative to do that. But realize that that's what you're doing by artificially holding down what the larger contributors are sending into the system. If one contributor is sending 50% of the stormwater into your system, it should follow that they should be paying 50% of your costs to manage that. And right now, that's not what's happening. While we may be doing okay and the system may be funding its operating costs, we can really only do one major capital project out of that fund per year, around $500,000 to $600,000. That's really limiting us where we're going to be able to go out, and you think about all the problems that Marion has had with flooding since 2002. This is our mechanism for how we address it. If we short it on the capital project side, we're just not going to gain any ground. And, you and I may just fundamentally disagree on that, and that's okay.
Well,
But-
of course we do. I mean, the figure I was given is 400% increase. Is that what you told me? I said 8, and you said, no, it's more like 4.
For
Right.
what?
100% increase, like for Linmar, and, I mean, we're talking.
For a certain few parcels that have a significant amount of impervious surface that don't control their runoff. Yes, they will have a large.
So we're going to
increase.
blackmail them into doing it. Is that our purpose here?
That is not the intention.
That's not the intention, but that is DNR's intention, is that they are forcing us to do this so that we will be proactive in our stormwater management. And that's what it all comes down to. And those increases are substantial because they've been subsidized over the last several years.
Well,
If
that's
they-
what
if
the council
we'd have
wanted
slowly
to
been
do.
biting some off, they would have been there.
And if the council wants to continue that policy, again, I don't think that it's something that we're going to object to. This is a policy decision for how you want to charge for it, who you want to charge for it, and how much you want to charge. And we're just looking for some direction on it. Staff put together one proposal, but if you want to make alterations to it, I would say of all the utilities that we have, this is the one that historically the council has made the most alterations to.
I guess what I could propose is, if there's an interest, we could go ahead and move forward with the writing of the ordinance and on Thursday, and then we could pull together a committee or something of council members or however you want to do it. And, I mean, I think there's a need to move forward financially, but we could take that input and draft an ordinance that everybody likes. I mean, we don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
Want to do?
And you talked about phasing it in with, these.
Yeah, any way council would like to do that, absolutely.
The phasing was just the first, one of many ideas of how to do that. If that's not acceptable to you, then we can think of another way of phasing that in. It's, again, I won't take it personally.
We don't want to make those businesses struggle any more than you do, but we feel like we've got to, the whole idea of the ERU system is fairness. And it really isn't fair to the residentials at this time. It hasn't been since we've developed it.
I have one more slide that shows the cost difference, but if I'll show it to you if you'd like. But if we're going to reevaluate this, then these numbers.
Can we read it?
Oh, sure.
Oh, there you go.
If we're going to reevaluate this, so these numbers might not actually be what they're supposed to be or what they are here. But right now we're getting about $80,000 per month in revenue from the stormwater utility. If we do this 5% increase and the first phase of the maximum phase out, then we could potentially be getting another $67,000 a year in revenue from the stormwater utility, just over $1 million. The previous slide showed the 2015, 16, and 17 of what we have received in revenue. And then if we go forward with this, then fiscal year 19, we could potentially see another $18,000 in revenue each year, which, again, like what Lon was saying, it costs money to maintain these stormwater best management practices that the city maintains and puts into. So if this structure is not acceptable, we can take a look at it and do something else with it. Again, it's...
Okay, so when you said costs money to maintain the stormwater management best practices, what does that mean?
We have to comply with the national, all these different regulations from the DNR and the EPA. Because
I just want to make sure everybody understands it. So
yes, there's whether it be the planning or the design or the construction, whatever it takes to put in place best management practices to control not only the quantity but the quality of water that comes out of Marion, which we are permitted to do. We are required by the DNR and the EPA to control the quality and quantity of water that comes out of Marion. We are regulated by the DNR and the EPA.
Those city costs are everything from enforcement to education to capital projects to
Maintenance.
System maintenance to all those things play into that cost.
I mean, that stuff. I mean, I think sometimes you guys assume that everybody knows that stuff.
No,
but
absolutely.
It's good to bring it out because we all need to
exactly.
understand what's driving these decisions. So
we have to meet certain standards that are set by the EPA and DNR, and our costs to do that continue to rise, and just like everything else, so we have to get those revenues to cover those costs.
And prior to us splitting this off and doing it as its own utility, these costs would have been on your property tax bill. So when you pull them off and put them into a stormwater utility, it becomes a dedicated source of revenue, and it actually has the impact of pulling down property tax rates. And property taxes, again, are not the amount that you pay in property taxes is not necessarily a direct relationship to how much stormwater you are producing and sending into the system. If you think of it in terms of, a $1 million house may look like it's got a lot of impervious surface because it's big and it's got a big driveway and a big roof. But if it's on a 5-acre lot that has a lot of surface that's pervious, it may be actually contributing less than a small house that has a lot of impervious surface on it out into the system. Same thing with the commercial properties. So having it as a dedicated utility based on an ERU system is a more equitable way to split those costs out according to who actually contributes rather than just property tax side, which is more arbitrary.
Yeah, I think some of you may recall, we had a stormwater utility for a long time. Everybody paid $3.25. So I, for my house, paid $3.25. Linmar paid $3.25. So there was a lot of years. I mean, I don't know how long it was around, but it was many, many years that situation occurred where, once again, the residentials were supplementing those non-residential properties. We're creating the runoff.
Current fees are supporting the current program, though.
As currently
I was
defined.
just told that, yeah.
As currently defined.
And I'm responding to complaints. Just last week, there was one about some paint that the painter claimed to accidentally have dumped down a storm sewer that wound up going into a pond. That turned out to be something that was minor, got cleaned up. It was in a private development, private street, private sewer, private pond. So that was not officially an illicit discharge. But if that were to happen on a public sewer, or if there was something on one of our construction sites that didn't look good, and many of the residents in Marion, they know what's going on with stormwater. When they see something bad, whether it be on a construction site or something going down a storm sewer that they don't want to see, they're not going to call me. They're not even going to call the Iowa DNR. They're going to go right to the EPA, and then that's going to come back to us. And if we're not doing our due diligence to make sure that all of this stuff is in place, the EPA could hit us with some pretty big penalties. If we can't prove that we are actually doing our part to control the stormwater quality and quantity that's coming out of Marion. So it's the compliance, regulatory compliance is something that we really need to keep our eyes open to.
And in that case, if the violator was not known, we would cover that cleanup cost. That could be substantial sometime in the future.
Well, I appreciate the discussion and the more in-depth information, because I think it helps us all to make more thoughtful, well-founded decisions that are based on actual information. And my goal is always to try to draw out all that important facts and all the important information so that we can all have well-founded decisions made. So.
And I think we all struggle when we're up here on how much information to give you, because the meetings get really long.
I know, but this is important
stuff. If you
stuff.
ask questions, we really appreciate the questions,
Yeah.
I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have one quick item.
Number 16. Are you back to 16 or?
Yes.
Find my stuff.
I took it out when he made me one. There we go. So along the central corridor, we've made several acquisitions to complete the project. Tom has, actually. Appreciate that when he does that. Along this site, this is between 14th and 16th, which is partly the next project that we would like to construct, but also is a little bit, as we just move forward with our acquisitions. We currently have 9 sites that we're looking at. 2 of them are actually empty lots, but they do have some work to be done, so they are included in the contract. We also have Site 1, which we do not own yet. However, we anticipate or hope to do that soon. So we have included that into the contract. The contract is with Genesis Equities, who is our developer within our development agreement within this corridor. So no, we did not let this contract. This is a contract that's based on what we consider market values and based on the agreement that we have with them to do work within the corridor. Within your package, you do have that contract amount and the contract in those locations. The contract is for $134,483.48. There are additional costs with that will include asbestos identification abatement. We don't know what that amount is, but it's separate from this contract, but you will see those costs as well as part of the Central Corridor project. What we're recommending is that we proceed with the contract with Genesis Equities. Abode will do the demolition work. As soon as this is approved, they will start doing work almost immediately. So.
Dan, define unit price on the storage garages, will you?
Where do you see that at? Is that in my memo?
Yeah, I have a memo that lists 1405 7th Avenue storage garages at $26,615.
There's unit is lump sum for each item.
Is a unit one building or one?
No, that's the site. That's the entire site.
The entire site?
Yes.
Wow.
Not much to the storage garages.
They're shells. I mean, but there's a lot of concrete there and a lot of surprisingly, a lot of these costs are landfill costs. Getting them into the landfill, paying those tipping fees, it's substantial these days. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Sorry we took so long tonight. Maybe Tom won't take so long.
What are the chances of that?
Slim, none.
So.
Maybe we could pick one that's on my agenda, right?
I'll go home.
I'm going to keep the first one that's highlighted brief. This is regarding encroachment for Mojo Properties, Olmsted construction. What's being proposed at that property, which is the corner of 11th Street and 8th Ave, we got a briefing last council meeting from the developer. There are balconies that extend over the public right-of-way, so they'll need encroachment agreements. Something a little bit new, we've done canopies and we've done signs and we've done different items. I think even tonight there was an encroachment agreement related to outdoor dining. So this will be something that we'll have to have in place when they go to build these. So just so the council's aware of this, and we'll be processing very similar to an encroachment agreement that we do for anything else. And obviously we'll have to ensure that the city's held harmless from anything that falls from a balcony. There'll also be some limitations on what they can have on the balcony, I think including grills. Maybe the fire chief can. But that'll be something that'll be. So as the uptown starts to develop, I think this is something that's kind of important that everybody just be cognizant of, that the balconies are very popular, but they come with some parameters as well. So any concerns with that if we process it as an encroachment or anything? So. Number 4, the council was briefed in a memo. This is 35th Avenue north of where the Methodist Church is proposed to go. The Obando family, some of you may recall, this request has been, I think, reviewed once before. They have the property north of the church, large property. They have 2 homes on it, and they'd like to split. When they do that, they want a deferral on the improvements, and they don't want to have to annex. This is not something that council has supported or that the city staff has supported. It goes contrary to our subdivision regs by virtue of subdividing. That's what the time we would get our cost back for any street construction, or the responsibility is provided in that manner. Just as the church platted on the south side, we received a check for the dollars that it's going to cost to build the street. They're asking for a deferral of those. At this point, staff's not supportive of that. If you want me to provide more information on that, I'd be happy to.
How much money are you talking there?
It would be substantial. I don't know, what was the church's responsibility, Dan, do you recall?
Church was around 260, so it's got to be around 500,000.
Where's the water and sewer, Tom? Does it go by those two houses?
No, it comes
It's
from
out,
the south.
out the other way? Yeah,
Martin,
okay.
see. Well, the current does. The northern part of this basin actually goes to the northwest. Part of this property goes to the northwest eventually.
If there's anything new on that, I'll be honest with you, Dave has been kind of handling this conversation with them. I don't think anything's changed. I think the only thing that has brought this issue back to light is the fact that the church is building and they paid their proportionate fee, so they were probably notified of some of the goings on with the church, and so they made the request. They may be here on Thursday to discuss that, but I'll find out a little bit more and just have that detail information. But there would be there would be no incentive for them to annex to the city, and there would be no requirement for a fee to be paid for that, basically quarter section, 1,200 feet of roadway associated with the property. So the city and the taxpayers would foot the bill for those dollars.
Weren't they proposing a final plat or
they'd like to split? There's two homes on one lot.
Yeah.
So they want to split the properties, which is an unfortunate occurrence, but that kind of puts a lot of onus on the city to defer those kind of improvements. And a deferral is different than a waiver, so I guess at this point we're not really interested in making that recommendation, but I'll have a little bit more information on Thursday if something changes.
Do you at least have the picture that you have in the packet there?
Yeah, yep. I just did.
Guess that's worth 1,000 words for...
So this is Highway 13, 35th Ave. There's a home here and a home here. There's a large farmstead. They own 160 acres. But this would be the single, if they platted, they would only have to do the quarter section.
Church is right where your finger is, Tom?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right here.
So the church owns the back?
They own from here to here. This is the Morris property.
Seemed like I've heard from fire that they'd sure like to have that hard surface road out there. Is that accurate, Chief?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
The next item, number 7, is the purchase agreement between the city and GLD. This is a project we've been working on for quite some time. I want to say probably 2 years. I think the council's pretty aware of what's been going on. This just kind of solidifies everything. So over the years, we've been working with Gibbs, Lamb, and Drown regarding the property that was the former Prince Ag property, which was located here. This was all one piece, or the red and the white was one piece. The city, owning the yellow on the south side, which is the former railroad right-of-way. The concept, gosh, I think it was probably a year and a half ago, was that we were going to enter into a trade agreement for this, plus so the value of this minus the value of this, and then the city would actually end up owing the developers a little bit of money based on a trade and the dollar square foot cost of the property, so that GLD would be able to develop this piece here, and that our road, which is currently on the red piece, would be dedicated to the city. So it's an acquisition and a sale. Since that time, there's also been consideration of these two pieces. This is the former Beaver Point property that the city just purchased, and this is the railroad property behind it, Plat of Survey 2055. On the agenda for Thursday is a Plat of Survey 2172 here that replats what we purchased from Beaver Point and excludes the right-of-way necessary. You may recall there's this slim piece of property off the front that we needed for right-of-way. So we're going to re-subdivide this property into two lots. This is parcel B of 2172. So really what this contract is going to do is to make the transaction occur, that we would get our right-of-way and we would sell the yellow properties. The concept is that we would close on this piece and this piece, or this piece, and this piece as soon as possible to allow for the construction of the hotel and the site to be developed. And then we would close on the remaining piece, 2172, after the first of the year. If you recall, we bought this for approximately $1.4 million. The concept is that we would include the conversations previously to these properties, where ultimately it comes down that there's the city owes GLD some dollars for this transaction, so we would subtract those from the 1.4 to get the new value and be able to move forward with the project at hand, which would be the hotel here in the near future. So
that hotel doesn't include those two pieces of property on the right.
Right here?
Yeah.
Correct. Not at the moment.
So basically, you're talking this week about if you draw a straight line there from there to my left. Yeah.
Yep. So that's what we want to. So it's one purchase agreement that we would exercise where we'd do a land transaction here to get the hotel going.
Right.
And then after the first of the year, we'd close on the remaining property.
But those two properties would stay together, is what I'm saying.
Right now, it's proposed that the entire property be developed as one.
But they don't own it right now.
What's that?
They don't own it right
Correct.
now. Okay.
Correct.
They have been working with the architectural and engineering firm that presented the original plan for the hotel and the area around it to take a look at that entire site and see how everything would work together, but they haven't made any submissions yet. So there's always the possibility, for example, that the hotel might move one way or another depending on the new layout and having that other property potentially available.
That being a corner property, it's worth quite a bit of money.
Mm-hmm.
Including the railroad right away.
Mm-hmm.
Tom said that the only parcel that would wait till after the new year.
You shut it off.
The only parcel that would wait after the new year would be 2172.
Correct.
So we would be looking at selling the one south of that. In this, all three of those would go together.
Yeah.
Okay.
It would essentially be a purchase agreement for all the property in exchange for the city's property, and then a closing at a later date. And it's. I'm looking looking for the number, the critical piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about 1.36 million that we would be selling the property for.
All of it?
Yep.
The whole thing?
Mm-hmm.
All four?
You got to remember, yes, that
We
that
traded
had
the
a-
other, though.
We had a $370,000 appraisal for that property.
We kind of traded it for the property in the back, is that right?
Yeah, but if you remember, Paul, the value of the piece in the front is higher than the piece in the back. And so
Okay.
the city was going to have to kick in dollars for the difference. By including that one that's listed as 2055, we can basically wipe most of that out. What we're trying to do is, if we structure everything together into one purchase agreement, we can avoid them having to do a 1031 land exchange where you have to stagger closings and everything, so that they avoid any capital gains on the taxes, and then you're not dealing with having a 6-month time frame for all the transactions to come together. So, we're trying to put it together in a way that makes sense to help them avoid some unnecessary capital gains tax implications, but also make sure that, we're also not writing a whole bunch of checks that we write them one and then they write us one and then they write us another one later, and just wrap it all together.
Well, I understand that, but the corner piece of property is the most valuable piece of property in that bunch.
Right.
And if we let go the back portion of it at this point, we've reduced the value considerably of it.
We're taking that into account. The value of the two back pieces is still less than the piece in the red because it's frontage. And, the piece in red, I think our appraisal's a year old at this point.
Yeah.
So I'd be a little scared about what it would come in if we went out and did it again.
Yeah, that appraisal was 370. So if you looked at it, and the property on the back side was $165 a square. I forget what the front side was, but it came out to about 185. Was plat of survey 2054.
Because we're not giving anything up basically in the front, a little bitty.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's $14,000.
Yeah. Sidewalk.
Yeah, exactly. So at this point, it's just there'll be additional conversation. This is approval of the purchase agreement. We're also within the council's agenda setting the date for the public hearing regarding the sale. There would be a resolution on the 22nd regarding approval and of the transaction moving forward. So really, we're just looking for action to get the purchase agreement in front of the developer for review, and then we'll bring it back to the city council for final approval. But it does contemplate the city selling the ground for $1.36 million and providing the property in yellow.
Where's the purchase contract for us to approve?
You do not have it, and I can get it to you if you would like to see it. Yep.
Okay. And so we would be, parcel, hold on just a second, let me find it. So parcel number 2172, we paid 1.44?
Yep.
And then we're going to sell the yellow for 1.36, all three parcels, and we're getting the red.
Correct. I know that there's a discrepancy in land size, but we've talked about 2054 being the railroad property.
Well, I get that that's not, I get that that's not
Yeah.
the appraisal and that's low, but 2055 is frontage road on 31st. The value of that is higher than what 2054 would be.
Right.
I don't see why we're losing money on it. And basically we're getting the red and selling all the yellow for the red for less money. We're selling the red for more money than we're buying the red for more money than we're selling the yellow. Did I say it
Probably
right
going to
this
be
time?
easier if we just do a memo for you to walk you through it on how the numbers work out, because those back two pieces, we do have numbers on for what their per square foot value is. And when we were walking through everything with legal and the developer, the value of the red piece still looks like it's higher than the value of the two back yellow pieces. So the remainder that we would owe them for that red piece is what we were deducting off of parcel 2172.
See, I thought originally we were trading the red piece. If you number those, Tom, have 1, 2, 3, 4. I thought the trade was, if that would be over to the property we recently bought. I thought we were trading the red piece for those railroad right-of-way pieces back there.
I remember that it was more expensive. The
there was
the red
money
part
that
was more expensive than the yellow.
there was going to be additional money that we owed them for the red.
Right. But it doesn't seem.
About 185,000.
Then the 2055, I guess, would you number that? 3?
2.
2? Okay. That's not worth 185,000?
Why don't we, like I said, why don't we break it out for you so
Yeah,
you can
that would
see?
be
I mean,
nice.
yes, it's got a higher value per square foot, but the square footage is a lot smaller than 2054.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yep. We
Break
can
it
do
down
that.
And
And
then can we see the purchase contract too?
yeah, and there's no reason to expedite it. So if we want to, we can. This is one that we can table without too much of an issue. We met with the developers this morning to talk about this, and there's some changes that had occurred between our conversation when we put it on the agenda and now. They're not bad changes, they were just changes, so that's why there's a little gap. So we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Do we still need any part of 2172 for right-of-way?
Well, since we already own that, there was a plat of survey also on the agenda, which created two small pieces, or 2 pieces, and we will in the transaction we would retain parcel A of plat of survey 2172,
Okay.
and sell parcel B. It's like 500 square
But
feet.
that's already in the agreement, is to keep that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
It's
So
not
the-
even, since
so the
we own
red-
it, we're splitting it off and just identifying it as parcel B.
Really, the red goes all the way up to the 35th First Street there.
It gets pretty skinny up there, though,
Yeah.
by 31st.
Yeah.
But the red should go all the way up. I mean, because
Yeah, there's a piece of red right here.
right, because in the end, we will own that part. We will retain that part.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Which would knock off some of the price of 2172.
Yeah, it was like $15,000. It's
Not
pretty.
a lot, but that's the prime side there, though.
Well, I get that.
Yeah.
But the fact that we just spent 1.4 on it and
Oh, I know.
we're
Yeah.
not really getting our money back out of it.
Yeah, we just wrapped the other conversation into it. So
Yeah, I mean, break it down and
Yep.
make sense.
Because what we were talking about doing was closing on 2054 parcel 1 and the red just to get the hotel, because they got to be in the grounds. We want that project to move forward.
Right.
But then we're writing a check, and then they're taking a gain. So there's a lot of moving pieces with it. So we were like, why don't we just wait and we can just do one transaction? That was the concept. So.
Any other questions on it? Next one.
Item number 9 is not starred, but I'd like to talk about this one. This one is this one too we've been talking about for quite some time. And I believe that the purchase agreement was just completed today on this one, but there's no dollars changing hands, so I think that might make this an easier conversation than the other one. It's purely property. And there is a time crunch on this property. We've been working hard in background on this from a legal perspective. And I'll just kind of walk through. If you recall, when the Marion Iron Agreement was put together, there was a trade discussed, and that was that we would get the right-of-way for 7th Avenue, 26th Street roundabout for certain parcels in and around that area. The red parcels are those parcels. The yellow is the existing right-of-way that the roundabout sits on. So we've been slowly working through this. This is 26th Street right-of-way. If you recall, we had to vacate that. We're in a position now where we can sell that. We vacated this portion of 7th Avenue quite a while ago. These plats of surveys have all been created, so the actual land pieces are there to trade. We've ordered up the abstracts, and we've done all the title work. And so the concept is that we would move forward with an exchange agreement, basically the yellow piece for the red piece. There's no dollars changing hands. It's just a transaction consistent with the original agreement. There's a lot of parcels, and it's fairly complicated on the backside, so it's taking a little time to get the actual document prepared. But one of the concerns that we have is that the owner of the property, Genesis, is currently being taxed on this property. So we're trying to get all this work done so that we can close on it before the 30th. Because if we don't close on the 30th, they're going to be paying taxes on what is being used as city right-of-way currently. So that's the reason for wanting to expedite this transaction and move it forward.
Tom, do you think there'll be any building on any of these properties this year?
I do not. No.
So the street, 26th,
mm-hmm.
Is that once this purchase agreement once it's closed, is that street gone, done?
Closed? So what would be Thursday would be the approval of the purchase agreement. In other words, the council's entering into a purchase agreement. We would notice the public hearing on the sale of city-owned property. That'd be held on the 22nd. There would be an additional resolution approving the sale that would occur at that time frame as well. So that just gets the transaction completed. At that same meeting, we'll get a right-of-way easement established over 26th Street, so it would remain open to the public and be.
How long do you think that's going to stay open?
Until there's a project.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's no plan for them to bring that.
10.
Yeah. There's no plan for them to close the street unless you're aware of one.
We've already closed left turns on the 26th from 7th Avenue. It can still be used by Salvation Army and so forth, but yeah, and you can come south and go right. You could probably go left if you really wanted to, but
I see. I mean, people are going west and turn right onto it. I see that quite often.
West.
Yeah. Headed west on 7th.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've just painted a splitter island in there now to expedite or to help with people getting into the right lane.
Right.
Is there anything that would keep them from putting advertisement or some signs in these properties here? That'd be very distracting.
Just for sale signs. There's no business, so you can't have an off-premise sign.
I think you're talking about both got those we're hiring and those signs in the roundabout.
Anything, I mean.
Nope.
There's nothing that would restrict.
Well, I guess I should say there's First Amendment signs that could be placed.
Right. But I'm saying.
I can't do much about it.
I'm saying eat at Tom's or.
No, those are all off-premise signs. For sale signs are generally, once there's a project where you see, the building, it's a 4x8 sheet of plywood that talks, but not advertisement type signs. No eat at Tom's. No. Well, it's a good question.
What about on their private property, on Genesis private property?
Well, that's what
I'm doing. You can't have any. There's no business to advertise. So any sign that would advertise anything would be an off-premise sign, which would not be permitted.
Are you talking about the signs that are there now?
No, I'm talking if somebody puts something. Genesis is going to own that land, and
what if Levita said, can I put a sign on your property for my blowout sale on Saturday?
Like a billboard or something?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. Which would be very distracting going around that.
Right, well, Bode has those signs in there right now.
No, but.
Which kind of are distracting.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they're on their private property.
Well, it isn't theirs yet, but.
Well, part of it is the white over there is where they're at,
Yeah, okay.
which would be their.
And I think it's important to point out that, like, so the Genesis owns, you know, this, all of this, this. So they own the, you know, the parcel. So these are remnant pieces that are being transferred to make developable parcels adjacent to the public right of way.
Right.
And that was the reason for the.
But I just thought that because those parcels are so small, and then they decide to,
Yep.
you know, fill it up with billboards or something, that would be.
That would not be good.
Yeah. Anyways, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And then 12 and 13, another property acquisition consistent with the development agreement. And this one also this is a similar situation with Genesis. This was a part of the Klinger relocation and as part of the project for the 15th Street roundabout. There was the agreement identified that they would provide the right-of-way for the road to be constructed as a part of that relocation. So parcel 5, the acquisition plat, was provided in the packet. We'd be acquiring for $1 the 2 buildings that are currently sitting on the property. Because they own it, we would be acquiring parcel 5, are being taxed, and there's no rental, there's no one in it. They've been waiting for the project to kind of roll. So the idea is that we could get those parcels acquired. That's why there's a desire to have buildings removed as soon as possible, so they're not being taxed on the property that's not being rented or being used for any business at this time. So. We're trying to expedite that one as well and get it closed by the end of the month. So
We wouldn't be responsible for tearing any of those.
We are responsible for tearing the buildings down.
Whole buildings?
Yep, not just half. As part of the acquisition, just similar to Prince Ag, when we tore down the building, we didn't tear down all the buildings, we just tore down the building that was in the right-of-way that would have to come down. They paid for the portion of those buildings, so. But the purchase price is $1, which makes that a little easier.
For all the red, or just parcel 5?
Just parcel 5.
Okay. Can we see the rest of that? Okay.
Yeah. So this is RJ Construction, and we don't own this little triangular piece, but that's we purchased this property. Well. There's been a lot of property transactions in the corridor. I realize that you guys probably aren't as, I'm working with it every day, so sometimes if I just leave out information, like Dan had said earlier, just got to remind me of the things that you need to see, because I'm looking at it every day, so. Any questions?
Any questions for Tom? Is that it for you?
That's it for me.
All right. Our first one on the men.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay.
No.
The first item is a resolution approving an addendum to the FBO lease agreement with Luxair Aviation. There's 2 pieces that are included in the lease amendment. One is that when we did the original lease, the part of the negotiation was that Luxair was going to contribute $150,000 for match for early rounds of DOT grants for projects that we were going to do out there. But we didn't actually memorialize that in the lease. And so with putting it in the lease, we'll have something that when we send them an invoice for the match, for example, the grant to put together the airport layout plan, that our auditors have some kind of an agreement in place that they can track that back and show that, yes, we had something on the books where they agreed to pay that and they paid towards that $150,000. One change was made to the lease from when the one that was included in the packet with the council, and that was that in the contribution period, we scaled that back from 5 years to 4 years, which is more in line with the expected expenses that are going to be associated with it. It actually benefits us because it means that they're going to be investing more faster in the property than going with the 5 years that were in there initially. The other change that it makes is that DOT had done a review of the FBO lease agreement for grant compliance. When we originally put the lease in place, that was done before we had gotten any DOT grants for the property. And so at the request of someone who had contacted them, they took a look at the lease, and there were a couple of provisions in there related to leasehold mortgage that they felt, if exercised, would jeopardize our compliance with the grant conditions. So the lease amendment also then removes the two items in the agreement that reference the ability to do leasehold mortgages. In practice, you can't really do a mortgage against a city anyway. It's just something that was included from a sample lease. There were no mortgages or anything in place, so it's not a case where it jeopardized any of the current DOT grants that we have. But this way, it'll remove it from the contract and take care of even the possibility of that issue being raised.
So that letter that we got from them, that's what they were saying?
Yep.
That was what they specified we needed to change?
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those were the provisions that they wanted to have taken out of the lease agreement.
Okay. And then instead of 5 years in what we have, it should say 4.
Right. That's just been changed to 4.
Okay. Any questions then for Lon? I hear none. Amanda, would you get the mayor back then? Thank you.
So number 4 is part 2 of fixing the Marion Commerce Corridor. The Marion Commerce Corridor, as you remember, was a consolidated Collins Road extension and Central Corridor urban renewal areas. A few months ago, Central Corridor was restated, and the boundaries were restated in that plan. And what we're doing here is doing the same for Collins Road, is just restating what that area is, separating, making sure that there is no overlap with Central Corridor, and then adding additional ground in that was previously in Central Corridor and reassigning it to Collins Road. So it is mostly administrative. Do you have any specific questions about that? Okay, so then number 5 is a professional services agreement with Retail Strategies. This is for the retail sector gap analysis that has been funded out of the lost funds for the 2013 renewal. This $90,000 amount is for 2 years, so we would have the option of not renewing for the second year. This dedicates the $45,000, but then allows us to move on to the second year if necessary. So first the gap analysis will be conducted, and then the recruitment will be ongoing until we decide to sever our contract with them.
We did a request for qualifications for companies for this, and Retail Strategies was, in fact, the only one that actually responded. But we've done a pretty extensive interview with them and then did quite a few reference checks. And one of the things I think that makes their firm a little bit unique is, in addition to coming in and doing an analysis of our market to determine what types of businesses and what types of companies would do well in our market, they are then built to help provide assistance with recruiting those companies to come into your market. They have relationships from anything with the nation's wide largest franchises all the way down to companies that have as few as 7 or 8 locations. But it's one of the things that when we've contacted communities that they've assisted, even in Iowa, they have been working in Dubuque for several years. Every community that we've talked to has said that they've been very successful in helping build that business sector. And that's one of the things I think that's been missing is, we've always been kind of in a position where we're waiting for them to come to us and indicate interest. This is a much more proactive approach, but they already have those existing business relationships. And more importantly, they know how to present the community's information in the way that those businesses want to see it, to try to make the decision very easy for them to be able to come to Marion. If you think about what we've done the housing study. This is the last in the series of 3 studies to really position ourselves to start being a lot more aggressive in attracting businesses to the community.
So is that for the same, it's under the same fee, the recruiting service?
Yes.
It's all part of the same fee, wouldn't be an additional?
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And that was one thing when we did the RFQ that we were specifically looking for, is we didn't just want information. Like the housing study is pretty passive. I mean, they gave us an idea of what we needed for a gap, but we have folks in town that are fully capable of providing the housing that you need to be able to meet those gaps. In this case, we wanted to be able to have somebody who could assist with doing the outreach. That doesn't mean that our existing building owners and property owners and commercial realtors and real estate firms wouldn't be welcome to use the data for their own contacts themselves, but this is a company that just has a nationwide footprint that can really help us broaden that net.
Number 6 is just accepting the art installations, majority of them, those that were installed last fall, and approving the final payment. The contracts all stipulated that they needed to be accepted by the city council before that final payment was received. So they have all been approved. If they had any electrical component, the building department inspected them. If there was any structural component to them, the structural engineering plans were reviewed and approved by the engineering department. So we feel happy with all of the ones that we are moving forward with accepting.
Is there a new mural painted back on one of the buildings?
None that the city has,
okay.
has contracted.
I just noticed that. That was back there.
At what location?
It's next to Campbell Steel.
Oh, on the back of the artist sanctuary,
Yeah.
You mean? I think they painted the back of their building.
Yeah, I think that would have been the property owner that did that.
With like kids or something on the...
I don't know what it is, but I just noticed it.
I saw it this weekend too.
It was not contracted for the city.
Is that okay that they did that? Or should...
I mean, it's their building, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dan, did the engineering work back there, did that turn out the way you guys expected as far as the power lines and cabling and the drainage and everything like that?
Yeah, I think so. I think we were very satisfied. They met the specifications and the plans as required. That's my go-to answer.
What's the final payment amount? I didn't see this in the packet. Anybody else?
Well, I can get you the number for Thursday. It's 5% of the total payments for each of the art pieces. So it's just the remaining
Final 5%.
The 5% that we held back for 6 months. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's still pass-through money, Amanda. It's money that...
Yep, it's all been
Money
approved by council through individual artist contracts. Yep.
And for all the installations, it was all of them?
All but I believe 2, because those weren't installed until later this spring. So those will be a few months from now that we'll bring those back to you.
Okay.
Number 7 is something I wanted to go through with the council in a little bit of detail. When we passed the budget this year, one of the things that the council approved was starting to recover some of our economic development costs from the city's various tax increment financing districts. If you think through the way that the city approaches economic development, we make contributions to Medco, to the Economic Alliance. We have a lot of staff time and everything that's dedicated to working on economic development. But the reality of it is when we recover that through property taxes, we're putting out 100% of the effort and recovering, depending on the school district, anywhere from 33 to 35% of the costs through property taxes. It's becoming increasingly more common in Iowa for cities to then in turn figure out a way to recover those costs from the district that those activities are intended to benefit. And so that's what we would be doing, is recovering economic development expenses from the city's various TIF districts. So this would become something then that's done every year as part of the budget approval process. The resolution that will be on for Thursday just directs the staff to start this process, because we can't actually incur the debt until we go through the authorizing and amendments of the urban renewal plans for the various districts and then hold a hearing. So that all comes later, but this would kick the process off for that. There's a second component to it as well, and this is related to one of the projects that was done in the Uptown area. With Dr. Shaw's project on the corner, the city was contemplating a series of rebates to them, as you would recall, that goes on for a period of years, and there's a minimum assessment on the building. The Medco Holding Company actually assisted them by capitalizing those rebate streams up front so that they could provide some loan proceeds to them, and then the dental practice assigned those rebates over to Medco Holding Company. They can save a lot of money on interest if we can help them cover payments earlier. If you think about how that works, normally Dr. Shaw's increase in property taxes is not going to show up for 18 months. So when you go to a bank and attempt to get a regular loan, if you don't pay them for 18 months, you incur quite a bit of interest. And so what we're proposing to do is to do a small internal loan to cover those payments for 18 months, and then we will recover that from the TIF districts. In essence, it'll end up being the same amount, but it helps us draw those numbers forward a little bit so that we don't end up paying more in interest costs on that project than we originally needed to. So those are the components that really go into this. So the resolution authorizes the incurrence of about $213,000 in internal debt from the sewer rental replacement fund. We'll recover $191,000 of that in 1 year, and then another $21,000 the year after that. The piece that is going to Medco Holding Company for the restoration dental project will recover that over 2 years. So those are the pieces that are involved with it. It'll get allocated out to the city's various TIF districts so that we don't try to create a lot of impact on any one specific district. It does lean more heavily on Collins Road, but Collins Road is the one that benefits from these projects the most. It's the one that has the biggest piece of GLD for the Central Corridor renovations. It's got the Marion Enterprise Center in it. So it's got the most ground that's available for economic development. The other thing that I wanted to bring up with that is that part of the expenses that we're recovering are planning expenses for economic development. We really do expect those to go up this year. When the council approved the original budget, we have a planning position in there that was anticipated to start in October. I'm proposing that we actually increase the internal loan a bit and start that position earlier. When we did the budget, I did not know that Kesha was going to be out for potentially up to 12 weeks with a new little one in her household. And so we've got a lot of extra activity heading towards the planning department, but we're down a person by 3 months. So if we can get the new person on and hopefully with a little bit of luck get somebody with some good experience that can jump in right away, we can help cover that gap and keep projects moving along. There are things like the zoning project and land use map amendment for the airport that we just need somebody to be the project manager for those. It was initially planned to be Kesha. She's out, and we want to keep those projects moving along.
right?
And then number 8, that's the letter that's actually associated with item 1 that we talked about from the DOT. Number 9 is a memorandum of understanding regarding the Mojo Properties LLC project. This is the Shermco building. And this one is a fairly complicated project. It wouldn't look like it just looking at it from the outside. But one of the things about this one is that's different than ones that we've dealt with is that you're taking a commercial property that right now is 2 floors of commercial, and he's proposing to convert the upper floor to residential. And so as the council knows, when you do that, there's a significant difference in the percentage of value that it's taxed on for property tax purposes. So we went through and looked at everything related to the project and ended up extending to them a conditional offer of 10 years, 90% rebate of incremental property taxes. We would estimate that the completion of the project, that the building right now, which is assessed at about $504,000, is going to end up being assessed at about $955,000, $956,000. So there'll be about a $450,000 to $460,000 net increase in taxable value, even with the conversion of the upstairs over to residential. So we're still moving. We're almost expecting that we're almost going to double the value of the building by having them complete this project. We extended that offer to him, and he did respond back and said that that's acceptable. And so we'll move forward with the memorandum of understanding on that, and then it will go through during the next round of amendments to the Central Corridor urban renewal area.
They'd continue to pay tax till it was done on the 460,000.
Right. You never affect the base. They will always pay taxes on the 504,000 that it's associated with now, and then we can only rebate about, again, depending on the district and what everybody certifies, between 84 and 87%. So even of that call it 460,000, there's going to be around 60,000 of that's an increase in value that gets split out to everybody that doesn't occur if we don't do this project. That's when we talk about the but-for test. If we don't do something with the property, it stays on the books for $504,000. So even though we're giving up 90% of the difference for 10 years, there's still that incremental value that doesn't happen. And maybe something happens there, but maybe it happens 6 years from now or 8 years from now. So the idea is to get it to happen earlier and then get those agreements off the books.
What TIF district did you say this was in?
Central Corridor.
Central Corridor.
Yep, that's Central Corridor. And then finally, on line number 10, the YMCA is looking at getting into the July round for community attraction and tourism grants. So anybody that's been partners, any organization that supports the project, they're asking them to pen letters of support. And so we would just ask for a motion from the council saying it's okay for us to put one together and have it signed by the mayor.
A possibility of breaking ground this year?
They would certainly like to. I think a lot of that depends on how their continued fund driving efforts go.
Yeah.
We've heard from Prairie Meadows for a while.
I think Jack plans on coming to the council at the next meeting to provide an update. I'm going to be seeing him tomorrow. They're getting ready to go in for a significant ask to the Hall Perrine Foundation. If everything comes together and they get the documentation they need from the bank, they'll be ready to go in the middle of June.
So Thursday he's coming, you mean, the next council?
No, it'd be the next set of council
okay.
meetings, yeah. Not this one, but
Gotcha.
following.
Further questions? Okay, good meeting. Thank you, everyone.